Hello dear viewers, support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it, and also make sure you comment your thought. Now let's start the video. At Daenerys' command, Drogon, who had been suppressed for a long time, spat out dragon flames containing anger. With a wingspan of nearly 2 meters, Drogon's dragon flames were already very powerful and causing obvious damage. Krasny let out a shrill scream and fell silent in just a few seconds. With no restraints left, Drogon began to attack the slavers in the stands, and there were wailings everywhere. At the same time, Jack, who was also stationed outside the city, was telling the goals of this operation in front of the 2,000 Unsullied who had assembled. You have been here as slaves since childhood and are dying. Only 1 out of every 4 people can survive. You kill babies and dogs with your own hands. You are numb and desperate. I know that there is definitely hatred in your hearts, and now the opportunity for revenge is right in front of you. Kill those slave masters and smash the void cages that imprison you. Asepta makes you kneel down, and Atlantis makes you stand up and become one. Accompanied by Corxu's dull roar, Jack led 2,000 Unsullied and rushed directly into the city of Astapor. Of course, Jack's goal is not to help Daenerys kill the good masters and slave owners, but the pyramid in Astapor City. Jack himself took 1,800 people along the way to free slaves. These freed slaves were organized into teams by Jack and became excellent porters. And Dia brought 200 Unsullied to an arena, which was Daedaloh's arena. At this time, Daedaloh was squirming on a bed slave. It seemed that he had gone through the back door. There was some discomfort on the bed slave's face. Daedaloh, who was obsessed with the back garden, did not notice the commotion in Astapor until the door to the room was kicked open. Ginny walked in with 10 Unsullied ones. Daedalohh looked at Getty in confusion, unable to realize what happened for a moment. "What are you going to do?" Daedaloh asked in confusion. Naturally, he never thought that Go was here for revenge, because this is Astapor, a slave owner's world. His eyes were red at this time. His whole body was trembling. He stepped forward and grabbed Daedaloh's throat. His voice was extremely angry. "When we were both slaves, how many beatings did I receive for you? How much dirty work did I do for you? But you still betrayed Martha and me." At this time, Daedalohh had already realized that something was wrong. At this time, not a single gladiator came to the arena, nor did any of his servants come. Something was wrong. My grandfather was a slave, my father was a slave, and I am also a slave. I have never seen the free starry sky, but she is my only starlight watching over my long journey. Since she left, there is only the abyss of revenge ahead. I have been waiting for this day for too long, 12 years. Kud's eyes were blood red, with a look of madness in his eyes. It hurt too much. He could obviously avenge Martha soon, but why was he so sad in his heart? After releasing Daedaloh, who was almost suffocating, Ju took a few steps back and then asked his men to take Daedaloh outside. At this time, the arena was surrounded by 200 Unsullied people. Following Gade's order, 17 Unsullied people stepped forward and set up their bows and arrows. At 17 bows and arrows, I remember them very clearly and I will never forget them. Daedaloh looked at the 17 bows and arrows, pointed at him, and knew that he would definitely die today. So Daedaloh laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I have enjoyed my life for so many years, and you have been humiliated by me for so many years, and your Martha will not be resurrected again. She will have to bear the title of a female hedgehog her whole life." Ha 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 ha. Facing Daedaloh's words, he did not break his defense, but said calmly, "Your wife and son and Miraine, and your little daughter, they will become excellent bed slaves." Daedaloh's face changed greatly. "Beast, you can't do anything to my family. You are a beast. Do you think you can still get out alive? The army of the good lords must have surrounded this place. You beast, dare to touch my son. You don't die well." At this time, Daedaloh finally panicked. His son was his destiny. From a slave to a small slave owner, he also hoped that his family could continue from generation to generation and become the true great nobles of Astapor. Woolen cloth. Seeing the panic and anger on Daedaloh's face, Gepton showed a satisfied smile and said, "Kill him." Looking at Daedaloh, who was filled with bows and arrows, just seemed to see his flattering smile in front of the slave owner 12 years ago. Taking a deep breath, the next step was to find Martha's father. He wanted to ask him why he could even kill his own daughter. However, Jidit didn't know that Martha's old father was already dead at this time, and died under Drogon's dragon flames. Martha's father was the first wave of people to be burned to death by the dragon flames. On the other side, Jack has led people to the largest pyramid in Astapor, which is the Pyramid of Krasny. It is said that the gold coins here can fill the entire Slaver's Bay. At this time, Astapor was in great chaos. Krasny's family members immediately organized a guard force inside the pyramid to prepare for a desperate resistance. Upon seeing this, Jack directly asked Korak to use the dragon flame to easily break through the pyramid's defense under the cover of the Unsullied shield formation. After opening the gap, the Unsullied rushed in and killed the nobles on sight. Jack did not stop them. His purpose was to plunder, not to occupy. With the continuous massacres, the entire pyramid exuded a strong smell of blood, and the slaves liberated by Jack along the way served as coolies. Under the supervision of the Unsullied, they began to move the gold and silver from the warehouse at the bottom of the pyramid, out. The carriages that had been prepared long ago were filled to the brim, and some people secretly stole some gold and silver. Jack did not stop them. These people took only a small amount, which made them feel that they had gained an advantage and could effectively prevent chaos. As long as they did not loot, the Unsullied, who caused chaos, would be killed directly. Looking at the carts of gold and silver treasures, Jack showed an irrepressible smile on his face. The benevolent masters of Astapor were essentially the same as the nobles of Westeros, and they were all passed down from generation to generation. This naturally means that their wealth was accumulated over the generations. If the wealth in the Christendom to gold dragons, there would be about 1.9 million gold dragons. According to Jack's speculation, the savings of the entire Astapor for hundreds of years were about 15 million gold dragons. This time Jack wanted to eat all at once. At this time 13 giant ships and more than 100 medium and large merchant ships appeared at the Astapor dock. On the Black Pearl, Newgate looked at Astapor, where black smoke was rising, and a look of joy flashed in his eyes. For a slave, what could make him happier than seeing the city of Slave Bay destroyed? "What do you feel?" Newgate asked Kaido beside him. Kaido shook his head gently. "No special feeling, just lucky." "Lucky?" Newgate looked at Kaido in surprise. "Yes, it was bought by His Majesty in advance." Kaido glanced at Newgate, then turned around to give the order to assemble. Newgate couldn't help but smile, and said to himself, "I am the luckiest one, but I didn't spend any money." Atlantis surrounds the entire dock. As the largest dock in Astapor, it is spacious enough to facilitate the handling of goods. This time, Newgate brought a total of 500 Unsullied and 1,000 sailors, plus the men in Jack's hands, enough manpower to transport the goods. Kaido led 500 Unsullied people to quickly control the entire dock. Many merchants and slave owners who were planning to escape were all detained, and all their property was naturally confiscated. Just when Newgate was controlling the dock and preparing to receive Jack, Jack had already arrived at the fifth pyramid. After many plunders, Jack discovered that the wealth gap between the benefactors was also very huge. Until now, there was no benefactor who could catch up to half of Krasny's wealth. At this time, Daenerys had already led the 9,000 Unsullied under her command to liberate slaves along the way. Her goal is also the wealth of the good people, but what Dany needs now is food and grass more, followed by gold and silver. At this time, Jack had confiscated nearly 4 million golden dragons' rare treasures. Looking at the fully loaded carriage, Jack was ready to stop. The largest pyramids of good masters had been swept away by him, and the remaining pyramids were left to Dany. "Liz, please search slowly, since it can't be installed anymore." Soon Daenerys met Jack. Seeing the wealth that filled the truck, Daenerys was not greedy, but stepped forward to ask Jack about his next plan. "Where are you going to develop next? Be a pirate, or build a powerful and unrivaled mercenary group?" Daenerys looked at Jack with burning eyes. "Establish a maritime power, Atlantis. From now on, you can call me Poseidon." Jack did not hide his ultimate goal. Now that he has established a firm foothold, he no longer has to worry about being surrounded and suppressed. Daenerys was silent for a moment and asked tentatively, "I wonder if you would like to join my royal council. I can give you the positions of Hand of the King and Commander of the Navy, and there is no need for anyone to contribute, as long as you are and just give me some advice at critical moments." Dany's words made Jack instantly think of a position. "Isn't this the honorary consultant?" I usually do nothing, but provide guidance in some key areas, and then get a lot of money. Jack touched his chin, but did not reject Daenerys immediately. What can you give me in return? If I join your royal council, Atlantis will be the enemy of the entire Slaver's Bay. Dany was speechless for a moment because she really hadn't considered what Jack said. Next, she would face the hostility of the entire Slaver's Bay. If Jack joins her council, there is a high chance that he will also be listed for the enemy. If you can gain a foothold in Slaver's Bay, I might consider helping you, but definitely not now. It depends on whether your situation is worth my investment. After hearing Jack's words, Daenerys temporarily gave up the idea of winning over him. Jack was right. If he had no investment value, there was no need for Jack to risk his side. After both teams avoided each other, Jack successfully arrived at the dock with a large amount of loot. At this time, Newgate had been waiting for a long time. The moment he saw Jack, he hurried over and said, "Your Majesty, the Sea Emperor, are you okay?" "Just call me Captain. You are considered an old man, so there is no need to be formal," Jack said with a smile. Newgate quickly corrected him. "Your Majesty, you are now a big man with 8,000 troops and hundreds of ships. It is inappropriate to call him captain anymore." "Ha ha ha. That's up to you." Jack liked the feeling of being flattered. Since someone was willing to flatter him, he was naturally very happy to cooperate. How is the construction of the South Islands now? He has not left a step in the past few months, and does not know what the South Islands are like. It is a treasure land. In addition to the giant island in the middle, the Septals Islands are surrounded by 5 small islands. A city can be built on the central island and a small town can be built on the periphery. Speaking of the Septals Islands, Newgate is completely satisfied. I thought the environment on the island would be harsh, but I didn't expect the soil to be fertile and the climate to have basically no shortcomings except for the rain. Jack asked people to move all the looted things to the ship, and then led his large army towards the Septals Islands. In the cabin, Newgate, Kaido, and Jack were eating. "Your Majesty, the entire Septals Islands are very large. It is roughly estimated to be about 20,000 square kilometers. Our people have only built camps in the northern part of the island and have not yet explored it in depth." Jack poured himself a glass of wine and then asked, "How many species are there on the island? If there are many species, it means that the Septals Islands are still very good islands." "There are quite a lot of species. In addition, there are no humans on the island, but there are a large number of black langurs, which are very annoying. If the black langurs are not eliminated, nothing can be planted." The black langur was named by Newgate, a kind of black monkey with curly hair and a leaf-like green mark on its forehead. The number of black langurs is astonishing, and they will even form groups to attack the Unsullied patrol team from time to time. Although there is no threat, it is very uncomfortable to be covered with rotten fruit peels and feces. Then Newgate told Jack about the situation of the black langurs in detail, and Jack waved his hand, indicating that Newgate didn't need to worry too much. Humans are an absolute invasive species, no matter where they go. After Jack transfers a large number of people to the island, the black langurs on the island will slowly become extinct because their habitats are cleared, and there is no need to even hunt them specifically. Black leaf monkey. "Your Majesty, where do you plan to move these people from?" "There are not many places where people can migrate. The best is Slaver's Bay, but there are no slaves in Slaver's Bay now. Of course they come from Slaver's Bay. Especially the Lazar people, who are docile and good at planting. They are the best large base population," Jack said without thinking. "But Slaver's Bay has been liberated by Daenerys Targaryen. How can we still buy slaves?" Kaido was confused. Kaido doesn't know much about this. He is proficient in commanding the Unsullied in combat, but he is only proficient in commanding the Unsullied in combat. Daenerys talks about liberating Slaver's Bay, but it's not even close. There are 3 cities in Slaver's Bay. Only Astapor has been liberated now, but Meereen and Yunkai have not yet. She does not have enough management talents to rule Slaver's Bay stably. How can the centuries-old slavery system in Slaver's Bay be eradicated so easily? What's more, the entire continent of Essos is accustomed to slavery. Isn't the prosperity of the 9 major trading city-states built on the bones of slaves? As soon as he finished speaking, Newgate stood up suddenly, and then knelt down to Jack. "Your Majesty, I beg you, if you have the energy, please help us slaves." What Jack didn't expect was that Kaido actually knelt down, and the meaning was self-evident. Jack was very pleased to see this. This is good. Only when you have your own ideas and pursuits can you be a complete person. Jack is not afraid that his men have too many thoughts, but is afraid that each of them will be as numb and boring as a dead fish. Get up, you are no longer slaves. As for the slavery system, you don't have to worry too much. It's just a small slavery system. Just wave Daenerys' sharp sword a little. Newgate looked up at Jack, who was pouring himself a drink. The confidence and dominance in his eyes shocked his heart. For a moment, Newgate felt that Jack was really the omnipotent Poseidon. Dong dong dong. Newgate kowtowed 3 times in succession. Your Majesty, I thank you on behalf of all the slaves in Essos. The old man Newgate had been a slave all his life, and his hatred of slavery was naturally self-evident. For Jack, destroying slavery did not require much effort, or doing it personally. He just needs to give Daenerys some advice and let Daenerys do it hard, and he can even get a lot of benefits from it. It takes about a month to travel from Slave Bay to the Seychelles. If fully loaded, it will take 2 to 3 months, depending on the wind direction and cargo volume. Your Majesty, the Septral Island is ahead. We will first pass some small islands with an area of only a few hundred square meters. These small islands are densely packed, but they are useless. But we can set up some sentinels for alert. Jack nodded. He had seen these once before. After all, the nautical chart was drawn by him and Poseidon. Huh? Jack suddenly made a puzzled sound. Newgate turned his head and followed Jack's gaze. On the coast of a small island, a strange giant beast about 4 meters long was resting. It was Poseidon. Your Majesty, don't worry. Although the sea lizard is ridiculously large, it has a gentle personality and will not attack humans. It has even saved some unsullied who can't swim. It is like a guardian of the sea. Newgate hurriedly introduced it, and at the same time stated that this sea lizard had saved the unsullied. He was worried that Jack would order the hunting of this giant sea lizard. Newgate believed that this giant sea lizard was the incarnation of Poseidon, and was the patron saint sent by Poseidon to protect Atlantis. Jack nodded expressionlessly, thinking, do I need you to introduce this thing? It was just that he was a little surprised to see Poseidon sunbathing on the beach just now. After all, Poseidon never sunbathed before, but preferred to wander in the deep sea. Seeing that Jack seemed to be uninterested in Poseidon, Newgate continued, Your Majesty, do you think it looks like our Atlantis flag? I think this is a good thing, which means that the god of the sea is watching our Atlantis, and your name of the Sea King is well deserved. We can publicize this matter and let your reputation be attached to myths and legends, which will also facilitate your rule. Jack smiled in his heart. Of course. How could it not look like it? I just drew it according to its childhood appearance. However, Jack did not point out the true identity of Poseidon. In the future, Godzilla's size will reach 200 meters, which is different from the 200 meters of the dragon. Dragons have wings, necks, and tails, but Godzilla is simply 200 meters tall. This visual impact is different, so Jack plans to make Godzilla the incarnation of the god of the ocean. 30 million years ago, the god of the ocean, Godzilla, fought against the god of darkness, Ghidorah, to save the world, and then added some strange earth gods, and was able to edit a cultural system by himself. Thinking of this, Jack couldn't help laughing, and then threw away the messy pictures in his mind. Soon, the mighty fleet arrived at the dock of the central island of Seychelles. The dock is still under construction, but we don't have so many professional craftsmen, so we can only barely build a model for temporary use. Newgate explained, It's okay, it doesn't matter. I will take time to go to Marine and bring back some technical slaves. Jack signaled Newgate not to worry. I can do this kind of small things. You don't have to do everything yourself. Newgate said hurriedly. In his opinion, Jack didn't need to do some small things himself, otherwise he would look embarrassed, as if he was idle and useless. Jack patted Newgate on the shoulder. I can't stay in the Seychelles Islands all the time, nor can I stay on the Sea King all the time. You will have a lot of tasks next, so I will do some things I can do. In fact, there is another sentence Jack didn't say, that is, Newgate's ability has been slowly unable to keep up with the pace of Atlantis development. In the final analysis, Newgate was a slave before, which is an unchangeable fact. His knowledge and experience are limited. Before, he could help Jack because there were not many people, and Newgate, who was old and experienced, could handle it. But with the increase in the number of people and the construction of the central island, Newgate must be getting more and more powerless. So next Jack is going to divide the position of the king's hand into two, the king's left hand and the king's right hand. This will not only share the power of the prime minister, but also give Newgate something to do, but not too tired or ashamed. After all, Newgate is one of the first batch of old people who followed him, and he has helped him a lot. Kick him out and it will make his subordinates feel cold. For the future political system of Atlantis, Jack is going to follow the model of the Seven Kingdoms. In the future, the territories of the nobles will be islands and overseas bases. As for what Atlantis will develop into in the end, that is not what Jack needs to consider now. However, Jack is not going to delegate all the military and political power to the nobles under his command, but only to the political power without military power. If military power is given, it is inevitable that some moths will arise. After boarding the dock, Jack first visited the camp built by Newgate and touched his head. Isn't this just a temporary camp? Jack thought that there was already a prototype of a village here, but he didn't expect it to be a temporary camp. He sighed secretly. His request was a bit too high. After all, it was only a few months. It was really difficult for them to build infrastructure. Newgate, let people build some warehouses first, put the wealth we harvested in them, and then cut down the trees with all our strength, so that everyone can live in their own stone and wood houses. Newgate touched his beard and said, I have arranged for people to cut down trees and collect wood. Jack shook his head and said, I mean everyone. No one will attack here anyway. Let everyone collect stones and wood, and then send people to the free trade city to buy food and various slave craftsmen. As for Jack himself, he planned to go to Meereen in person. There were a lot of skilled slaves there, including carpenters, stonemasons, blacksmiths, etc., with a full range of types. Although there may not be many people with truly superb skills, there are many of them. 3 cobblers will kill Zhuji Lang. Hiss! A dull dragon roar sounded, and Korakshu dragged a black primate creature that was more than 1 meter long and flew over. Newgate saw this and said to Jack, This is the black leaf monkey we encountered. It is pitch black, has a violent personality, and is not small in size. Korakshu landed slowly, and then dragged the black leaf monkey to Jack's feet with excitement, motioning Jack to try it quickly. It was very delicious. Jack narrowed his eyes slightly. He was not very interested in primates, but he still asked someone to drag the monkey down to deal with it and taste it simply. Do you think this thing is delicious? Jack looked at Koraku. Koraku tilted his head and didn't say anything, but the meaning was self-evident. He thought it was really delicious. If it could speak, it would definitely tell Jack the meat of black leaf monkeys is delicious and must be tasted. Patting Koraku's head, Jack said, Then I will give you all the black leaf monkeys on the island. Eat as you like. His Koraku neighed softly, then got up and flew to the distant forest. The Septals Islands are flat and densely covered with jungles. A freshwater river runs through the entire central island. Next, Jack plans to build a riverside city along the way, called Neptune City. Although the Ceres Islands were Jack's choice, Jack had never known the Ceres Islands in detail before. So Jack spent the next week exploring the Ceres Islands. After a week of exploration, Jack finally felt relieved. There were no large beasts in the Septals Islands. The most threatening creatures were the black langur monkeys in the island's forests, but this was not a problem. Directly west of the Septals Islands is the Basilisk Islands, and Jack plans to turn the Basilisk Islands into the territory of Atlantis in the future. However, the Basilisk Islands are different from the Septals Islands. The island is as its name suggests. Although the area of the Basilisk Islands is several times larger than the Septals Islands, the snake lizards on the island are ugly, ferocious, and huge reptiles. It is said that the largest snake lizard is twice the size of a lion, so it must be at least 5 or 6 meters long. However, basilisks are also considered one of Essos' commodities, and many hunters will risk going to Udi or the Basilisk Islands to catch basilisks. Basilisks are commonly used in gladiators, in Essos, for human entertainment, such as fighting slaves, dogs, and other creatures. His Kolexiu fell from the sky. Jack frowned and looked at Kolexiu. Originally, Kolexiu was a slender dragon, but after just a week, he had gained weight. Don't call him Kolek. Call him Labra Pig. This name suits you very well. Jack complained with a speechless expression. Sneak, Colaxiu shouted proudly. It felt that its gain in weight was due to its superb hunting skills, and it was proud of it. During this period of time, life was like paradise for Colaxiu. The densely packed black langurs could be caught by Colaxiu with his eyes closed, and not only the black langurs but also many other animals. The wooden door was pushed open with a creak, and an unsullied one pushed the door open and walked in, followed by a little ewe. It was Evelyn. Evelyn had grown up a lot at this time, and had transformed from a cute goat girl into a delicious goat girl. No, she had turned into a charming and cute goat girl. Hi, Evelyn trotted to Colaxiu's side, bumped Colaxiu's head, and then hid under Jack's crotch amidst Colaxiu's angry roar. Ba ba ba. Evelyn looked at Colaxiu with a proud look on her face. It doesn't matter that you have horns, you don't want me to provoke you. Oh, fake Evelyn, I say it again. You are not allowed to provoke Colac. Otherwise, if he eats it for you when I am not around, I will have nothing to do. It was a pity that Evelyn was just a little goat after all, and could not understand Jack's complicated warnings. But luckily, she saw Jack's warning tone and restrained her complacency a little. Then Jack warned Colaxiu. Colaxiu, you are a noble dragon. You are smart, upright, brave, and kind. Evelyn is our family. Although she is stupid and arrogant, she is absolutely you can't eat her for any reason. Do you understand? Colaxiu put away his fangs with a look of displeasure on his face. Jack nodded with satisfaction upon seeing this. The dragon was still very intelligent, although it was still not at the level of a normal human being. It was much smarter than other animals. And when Evelyn saw Colaxiu put away her fangs, she waggled her little tail and came closer to Colaxiu and then rubbed her head against Colaxiu's neck, with a look of flattery on her face. Colaxiu turned his head away with a look of disgust. He didn't want to pay attention to this stupid ewe at all. Ignoring the two non-humans who were fighting every day, Jack ordered the Unsullied, "Go find Newgate and ask him to come see me." Yes. Soon Newgate came to Jack. After bowing respectfully, Newgate asked, "Your Majesty, do you have anything to do with me?" "I am going to leave for Slaver's Bay. You continue to arrange for people to go to the free trade city to purchase food, iron ore, and other materials. When the time is right, I will send you a message. When the time comes, you can just take the ship to Slaver's Bay to transfer the population." Hearing this, Newgate frowned slightly, and then asked, "Your Majesty, if this is the case, then when purchasing grain and iron, do you still need to buy slaves? There are also many slave traders in the 9 major trading city-states." Jack waved his hand. "No need to buy it. That will cost money. If Slaver's Bay operates properly, we can get a large number of people and craftsmen without spending money." Newgate nodded. "In that case, I will buy grain and iron. Is there anything else you need to focus on?" "Let's buy grain and iron first. This is the most important thing. In addition, we need to buy good grain seeds. At least the Septals Islands must be self-sufficient first. There is no farmland in the Septals Islands yet, and all the food is bought by the fleet from outside, so Jack has to start preparing for land reclamation." He handed a piece of burlap paper to Newgate and told him, "This is the method of making soil fertilizer that I compiled. You can have someone try to make it. It doesn't matter if you fail, but you must keep trying." Newgate carefully accepted the method of making soil fertilizer. "I understand, Your Majesty, don't worry." 3 days later, after Jack arranged the follow-up basic work, he set sail again on the Poseidon. Jack didn't take many people with him to Slaver's Bay this time, only 300 Unsullied, not even Colaxiu. The ecological environment of the Septals Islands is very suitable for Colaxiu's growth. Colaxiu's growth rate on the island is much faster than running around with Jack. After the renovation, the Poseidon has a wide space and is not slow, making it very suitable for travel. And there was Poseidon working as a boatman under the ship, so according to Jack's calculation, as long as Poseidon gritted his teeth, he could reach Slaver Bay in about 18 days. Soon half a month passed, and on this morning, Jack moved his body on the deck and jumped into the sea. After entering the sea, Poseidon came to him from the bottom of the sea. Jack grabbed Poseidon's dorsal fin and then dived rapidly under Poseidon's leadership. Because he had transplanted the heart of the ocean, Jack could see things within a certain range, even underwater, and soon Jack was brought to his destination by Poseidon. Jack looked at the shipwreck in front of him with shining eyes. There are many shipwrecks in the sea near Slaver Bay. These shipwrecks are lost treasures that are out of reach for ordinary people, but very friendly to Jack. This is also something Jack has only thought of recently. Sure enough, under Poseidon's search, he really found a shipwreck today. Touching Poseidon's big head to show encouragement, Jack held a water fork and swam quickly towards the shipwreck. Poseidon followed closely behind, protecting Jack's safety at all times. This ship looks like a large merchant ship, with only half of the hull exposed outside, and the rest is buried in the mud. Jack circled around the exposed hull and winked at Poseidon. Poseidon immediately understood, opened his mouth wide, and pierced the hull with an atomic breath. Looking at the hole in the hull, Jack enlarged the hole with force, and then slid in with his size advantage. As soon as he entered the cabin, Jack saw several corpses. Exploring along the hull, Jack didn't get anything. There were things that broke at the touch everywhere, not even some porcelain and gems. However, Jack was not discouraged. Although there was nothing on this ship, the most likely reason was that it had been too long, and there must be a shipwreck in recent years on the seabed. Thinking of this, Jack was about to leave. At this moment, Jack's eyes condensed and he found an unusual skeleton. All the boxes Jack had encountered before were broken at the touch, and no one touched them, but the skeleton in front of him had a large wooden box in his arms. And the ankle of this skeleton was entangled by a chain. It is not difficult to imagine that this skeleton wanted to take the box away when the ship sank, but it was accidentally entangled by the chain on its ankle and eventually drowned in the sea. He went forward and smashed the corroded skeleton and wooden box, and a suit of armor emerged from the wooden box. Jack was surprised. This was actually a set of knight armor. It had not been corroded for so many years. After untying the rope from his waist and tying the knight armor, Jack dragged the knight armor and swam outside. Just when Jack was about to reach the exit, there was a loud noise outside, followed by Poseidon's roar. Jack was shocked. Did a creature attack Poseidon? Without time to think about it, Jack temporarily put down the knight armor and immediately came outside. He saw Poseidon fighting with a giant octopus. The tentacles of the octopus are at least 10 meters long, and the overall appearance is about 11 or 12 meters. No wonder there are always legends about sirens on the sea. With this size, it is easy to eat several people in one meal. However, with the heart of the ocean, Jack is at home in the sea and is even stronger than on land. Jack rushed towards the octopus with a harpoon in hand. The octopus also found Jack at this time. It didn't have time to think about why the two-legged beast appeared in the deep sea. It directly freed two tentacles to wrap around Jack. However, the clumsy two-legged beast in the sea, in memory, easily avoided the tentacles. When it reacted, Jack had already stabbed it into its mouth with a harpoon. So big, so deep, so painful. The octopus loosened the tentacles that trapped Poseidon after feeling the pain, and Poseidon took the opportunity to spit out atomic breath to cut the octopus's body. After seeing that the octopus slowly stopped moving, Jack returned to the hull, took the knight's armor and swam to the sea surface. Poseidon dragged the giant octopus to follow Jack. After a while, Jack emerged from the water and returned to the deck of the Poseidon along the ladder prepared before. As soon as Jack came up, Ellie and Jagger came up to meet him. Seeing the knight's armor on Jack's back, Ellie's eyes were full of admiration, just like seeing the wolf leader who went out hunting and returned with a full load. Throwing the armor on the deck, Jack immediately called a team of Unsullied and asked them to find a giant hook. Jack tied a rope to one end of the hook and then jumped into the sea again. Hooking the hook into the octopus, Jack returned to the deck again and asked everyone to work together to pull up the more than 10-meter-long octopus. Suddenly, hundreds of people on the Poseidon gathered on the deck, looking at the octopus's body in shock. Is this an octopus? It's so big. This must be the legendary Kraken. Lord Poseidon is really the reincarnation of a god. He can kill this kind of sea monster underwater. There was a lot of discussion around, but Jack didn't care about it. After flattening the giant octopus, he measured it and found that the body length of this monster was 13.7 meters, which was as long as Jack's previous sea dog. Chef, where is the chef? Drag this octopus down. We will have a seafood dinner tonight. Woo! Everyone cheered. They have been out to sea for half a month. The food is getting worse day by day. It's hard not to be happy to catch up with the seafood dinner today. And Jack secretly asked Poseidon to speed up and try to reach Slave Bay as soon as possible. It was soon night, and Poseidon was still moving fast, while the crew was singing and dancing on the deck. Jack lay in Ellie's arms and enjoyed the grilled octopus with the service of Jaeger. Fortunately, the spice trade in the Game of Thrones is very developed, and the octopus tentacles don't taste fishy. In order to celebrate the killing of the giant octopus, Jack also took out all the remaining wine and water, and everyone got half a cup. As for the knight armor, Jack had put it away. He was 80% sure that it was a set of knight armor made of Valyrian steel. Only the legendary Valyrian steel could be soaked in the sea for a long time without being corroded and rusted. But unfortunately, the knight armor did not fit Jack well. Jack guessed that the owner of the armor should be around 1.75 meters tall. Jack was more than 1.8 meters tall, and it was a little short when he wore it. Although the impact was not particularly large, it was very awkward and ugly. At the same time, Daenerys, who had stayed in Astapor for several months, set off for Yunkai. Unlike in the original series, Daenerys did not decide to attack Yunkai until she learned that there were 200,000 slaves in Yunkai. Under Jack's enticement, Daenerys took it upon herself to liberate the slaves. After leaving behind a leadership class headed by doctors, scholars, and warlocks, Daenerys led an army of all the Unsullied and some of the new freedmen who were willing to leave with her to the north. 2 days passed in a flash, and Jack parked the Poseidon at the Astapor dock. Then he brought 100 Unsullied to the city of Astapor. At this time, Astapor was still celebrating the liberation of slaves on the surface, but in fact, the chaos had begun to be uncontrollable. The reason was still this group of liberated slaves. After hundreds of thousands of slaves were liberated, Daenerys did not arrange a way out for these slaves. Daenerys told the slaves, "You are liberated. You are free." But the same is that this group of free slaves have nothing to do all day, and they have no idea what they are going to do next. In just a few months, it went from excitement to confusion, and even many slaves felt that they had lost the meaning of life and hoped to return to the slave system. After Jack entered Astapor with the Unsullied, the first feeling was chaos. A large number of new free people were wandering aimlessly on the streets. Jack looked at these new free people and found that these people were not as energetic as when they were slaves before. The whole person gave him the feeling of a walking corpse. But not all people are like this. There are also many people with ruddy faces and full of vitality. Jack guessed that these people should be slaves with skills. For example, stonemasons, carpenters, blacksmiths, etc. They have skills, so even if they lose the command of slave owners, they can still support themselves. Especially bed slaves, after losing slave owners, the income can fall into their own hands, and their lives are naturally getting better and better. The worst are those ordinary slaves. Without slave owners to work for them, they have no skills themselves. They live on the food left by Daenerys all day long, eating and sleeping, sleeping and eating. So naturally they begin to numb. However, more ordinary slaves still prefer this lazy and free life, and only a few slaves look forward to returning to the hands of slave owners. In short, the entire Astapor is now in a state of chaos and disorder, and the production work of the entire city has directly fallen into a semi-stagnant state. Especially after most of the good masters were killed by Daenerys, Astapor lost its pillar industry. Jack did not stay in Astapor for too long. After buying supplies in the city, he returned to the Sea King. The new freedmen here were ordinary slaves, and were not very useful. On the Sea King, Jack went north along the slave coast, and soon arrived at his destination, Meereen. On the way, Jack also saw the mighty army of the Unsullied on the coastal continent. The coastal continent starts from Astapor, is built along the coast, and continues to Meereen. In Game of Thrones, the slave owners of Meereen nailed 63 slave boys to death on this road, and pointed the fingers of these slave boys to the sky to provoke Daenerys, who claimed to be the slave liberator, and they succeeded. Dany was so angry that she was fuming, and then nailed the same number of big slave owners to death. Meereen is located on the northernmost coast of Slaver's Bay, near the mouth of the Squazaden River, on a sandy cape. To the east is a series of hills, and after that is a sandstone mountain range. To reach Laza, you must pass through the Kaiser Pass. Meereen is built of bricks like its sister cities Yunkai and Astapor, but Meereen's bricks are multicolored rather than simply yellow or red. She has strong defenses, with high and thick walls in good repair, defense towers at every corner, and bronze harpy heads on the walls that can spray boiling oil at the enemy. The northern wall runs along the riverbank, which flows through the city, while the western wall is built along the bay. The city's sewers lead to the Skalzadon River. Overall, it is worthy of being the largest, most prosperous, and most populous city in Slaver's Bay. It is said that Meereen's population is larger than Astapor and Yunkai combined. After docking the Poseidon, Jack led a team of Unsullied and Vital into the most legendary city in Slaver's Bay. "The pyramids here are really big," Vital exclaimed. "The largest pyramid in Meereen is called the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is 800 feet high, has 33 floors, and is topped by a bronze harpy statue. Later, after Daenerys occupied this place, she moved her bedroom to the Great Pyramid, replaced the harpy statue on the top with a beacon tower, and planted the red dragon flag of the Targaryen family. There is not only the Great Pyramid here, but also the Temple of Grace and the huge arena. We can go and see it later," Jack said. Anyway, it will take a few months before Daenerys comes, so it doesn't prevent Jack from playing for a while. "Really?" Fiddler's eyes lit up. During this time with Jack, she seemed to have forgotten her previous slave experience, just like a naive and active little girl. Rubbing her little head, Jack said, "Of course. Can I still deceive the cute little fool?" "Humph, you are so annoying. I am not a fool at all. I will go to the bar to see the world today, and update these first." The slave market in Meereen is very large. Jack went straight to the high-level slave market after arriving at the slave market. There are many types of high-level slaves, such as teachers, physicians, and housekeepers. The training period of these high-level slaves is very long, and the price is naturally very expensive. Depending on their abilities, the price is also around dozens of gold. Jack asked several slave owners in succession, and found that the most expensive high-level slaves were physicians, followed by teachers and housekeepers. Even though these people are slaves, their masters generally do not treat them as livestock, but give them certain preferential treatment. Among them, the price of the most expensive physician is similar to that of the Unsullied, about 30 gold dragons, and the teacher is cheaper, about 20 gold dragons. As for other types of high-level slaves, such as housekeepers, the price generally does not exceed 10 gold dragons. Secondly, Jack also inquired about all the slave children age 6. Children of this age are in the period of growth, eat a lot, but can not do many heavy work. So the price is relatively cheap, only 10 coppers per person. And this price has already risen, because Daenerys liberated Astapor and now besieged Yunkai, causing the slave price in Meereen to skyrocket. The skyrocketing slave price made the great lords of Meereen give up the plan to support Yunkai immediately, and instead prepared to make a fortune during this period, and then help Yunkai. After all, the three cities are in a competitive relationship. If Daenerys' goal was not to liberate the slave bay, they would not even care about the life and death of Yunkai and Astapor. Just as Jack was trying to figure out the situation in Meereen, outside the city of Yunkai, the wise lords selected representatives to try to negotiate with Daenerys. The one who comes is Lord Rosdol Motorez, an ancient and glorious noble, the Lord of Mortals, the barbarian negotiator, who represents Yunkai to make peace. Missandei introduced the identity of the wise lord, and brought the wise lord representative to Daenerys. Before the wise lord spoke, Drogon and Viserion roared in a creepy way, scaring the wise lord representative to take a step back and swallow his saliva. Daenerys smiled, obviously satisfied with Drogon and Viserion's show of strength. Missandei saw that the show of strength was over, and said, "In front of you is Daenerys Stormborn of the Targaryen family, Queen of the Andals, and the First Men, Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons." Whether in Westeros or Essos, people in the world value bloodline very much. When Missandei introduced, the representative of the wise lord also looked at Daenerys, and was surprised that her name was so long. Daenerys smiled and stretched out her hand. "You can come forward, please. Take a seat." The wise lord looked at the three dragons beside Daenerys, hesitated for a moment, and then slowly walked forward and sat down. Missandei came forward with a cup and asked, "My lord, would you like a drink?" Aras nodded, and then Missandei poured a glass of wine for Aras. Ristol Mai. Riz took a sip of wine to calm down. "Yunkai is ancient and glorious. Our ancient empire existed long before the dragons of Valyria danced wildly. Many armies have been defeated by our city." Looking at the nagging Ares, Daenerys did not speak, but took out a piece of raw meat from the plate beside her and threw it directly into the air. Smelling the food, the 3 dragons beside Dany flew into the air and instantly tore the raw meat into pieces. This scene scared Usse so much that he leaned back, frowned, and looked at the 3 young dragons, secretly slandering that the 3 young dragons were as vulgar as Dany. Very good, my Unsullied need practical experience. Someone once said that they should taste blood early. Iraz immediately retorted, if you want blood, there will be rivers of blood. But why? Although you committed barbaric acts in Astapor, we Yunkai people are generous and tolerant. The wise lords of Yunkai have brought gifts to the Dragon Queen. Then the representative of the wise lords clapped his hands and 4 slaves came up carrying 2 boxes. At the signal of the representative of the wise lords, Eret's 2 slaves opened the boxes. One box contained glittering gold, which was obviously of good quality. The other box contained crystal-clear gems of various colors. There are more on your ship, Eraz said confidently. Daenerys smiled and asked, my ship? Yes, Dragon Queen, I said. We are generous, you can have as many ships as you want. What are the conditions? We only ask you to sail away, return to your homeland, and take back the Iron Throne that should belong to you. Eraz has already lowered his attitude very low, giving money and ships, just asking Daenerys to return to Westeros and stop interfering in their politics. They don't want, nor do they want to see a war with the Mother of Dragons. They just want to do the slave business quietly. Daenerys looked at the slaves kneeling beside Eraz, after hearing this, and then said to Eraz, I will also give you a gift. Eraz sat up slightly, showing a look of listening attentively. Your life. Eraz was a little confused. My life? And the lives of the wise masters. Daenerys added, but I also have a condition. Release all the slaves in Yunkai. Give each man, woman, old and young the food, clothing, and belongings they can carry as a reward for their years of labor. If you refuse this gift, I will show no mercy. Are you crazy? Eraz had a look of disbelief on his face. He didn't expect Yunkai's sincerity to receive such a reply from Daenerys. We are not Astapor or Korth. We are Yunkai, and we have powerful friends, who will be more than happy to destroy you and your armies. For the survivors, we will enslave them again. Maybe even you will be our slave. Eraz stood up as he spoke. At this time, Drogon suddenly let out a shrill roar. Eraz quickly backed away and said to Daenerys, You swore to guarantee my safety. Daenerys nodded. I swore an oath, but my dragons didn't, and you threatened their mother. After speaking, Dany looked at Drogon with a smile. Eraz looked at Dany with shame and anger. He felt that he had been tricked. Take the gold and let's go. He ordered his slaves. The 4 slaves stepped forward tremblingly under Drogon's gaze. Before they could touch the box containing the gold bars, Drogon roared and rushed towards the gold. The frightened slaves quickly backed away. This is my gold. You gave it to me. Do you remember? Daenerys looked at Eraz expressionlessly at this moment. I will use it properly, and you must cherish the gift I gave you. Daenerys said seriously. Now, get out of here. Eraz cursed, then turned and left. Barristan said at this time, The Yunkai people are a proud race, and they will not surrender. What will happen to those who don't surrender? Daenerys asked softly. Jorah and Barristan were silent, pleased with Daenerys' confidence. They say they have powerful friends. Who are their friends? Jorah thought for a moment, and then said simply, I don't know. Daenerys rolled her eyes slightly. Find out. Jorah nodded and then led the people away. At this time Drogon flew to Dany's side and Daenerys stroked Drogon's head. Her eyes were full of confidence. Now she has dragons, an army of Unsullied, and a lot of plundered property. I didn't update because I went to a bar yesterday. All I can say is that I won't go to the bar a second time. It's not fun at all. A week after the failure of the negotiation between the Wise Lord and Daenerys, Daenerys has surrounded Yunkai, and Yunkai has also made sufficient preparations, not only with 5,000 slave soldiers, but also with 2,000 mercenaries from the Second Sons. Here we will use the setting of the TV series. The setting of the original book is a bit complicated, and many people have not read it. Facing Daenerys' 9,000 Unsullied, plus the dispensable new Freeman army, relying on the city walls, Yunkai is confident that it can resist Daenerys' attack. After all, Daenerys has no siege equipment, and even if the Unsullied are strong, they cannot appear directly on the city walls. The atmosphere between the two sides is tense, but Daenerys is not in a hurry to attack. She believes that mercenaries fight for gold, and dead people cannot give mercenaries gold. She chose to negotiate with Mero, the leader of the Second Sons, who is known as the Bastard of Titan. But Barristan does not recommend doing so. Mero, known as the Titan Bastard, is the leader of the mercenary group, Second Sons. He is from Braavos, tall, with light green eyes and a thick red-gold beard that reaches his waist. He is notorious, and almost no one dares to hire the notorious Second Sons under his command. In short, this man is dangerous and has no credibility. Even if he surrenders to Daenerys, he is like a time bomb that may explode and backfire at any time. However, Daenerys still insists on her choice. If she can incite the Second Sons to revolt, then the next war will be much easier for her. At the same time, Jack, who is in Meereen, is looking at Korak Hugh in front of him angrily. Look at me. I just left, and you are lawless. You are either stealing chickens or dogs all day long. I think you don't want to live. Jack is holding a letter in his hand, which details the sins committed by Korak Hugh after Jack left. Finally, after Newgate and others discussed, they all agreed that Koraku should be sent to Jack, and he should not be allowed to do whatever he wants in Seychelles, otherwise the camp would have to be demolished. So the Newgate people locked up Koraku and sent him directly to Jack, and wrote a letter listing Koraku's crimes. It was precisely because of this that Jack was so angry now. He didn't expect that Koraku's good baby appearance was all fake. Koraku knew that the matter was exposed, and he showed a pitiful look, as if saying, "You know, I left my mother when I was young." Brother, don't be angry. Koraku is still a little dragon after all. It's normal to be naughty. The Tellier got into Jack's arms directly. Jack picked up his slippers and said in a deep voice with a dark face, "No matter who comes today, it will be useless. If it dares to eat the hen that lays eggs today, it will dare to eat people tomorrow." Hearing this, the Telly gave Koraku a look that said, "May the best of luck to you." She really tried her best. Generally, if it was not a big deal, Jack would go along with her as long as she acted coquettishly. But today, Koraku could not escape this beating. Koraku also knew that he was in danger today. Looking at Jack, who was coming over, Koraku wailed directly, as if the sole of the shoe had hit him. This made Jack even angrier. "You are starting to pretend, right? I told you to pretend. I told you to pretend." The shrill howl sounded again, but it was obvious that this time the howl was more sincere and heartfelt, and less fake. Just when Jack was teaching Koraku a lesson, the Meereen nobles in the front yard, including the Daznak family, looked at the direction of the inner yard with some fear. Does the father of dragons usually train dragons like this? Sardari Daznak said tactfully. He originally wanted to say that the father of dragons usually abused dragons like this, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was inappropriate, so he changed his words. The Unsullied glanced at the nobles in front of him. He didn't want to speak at first, but for the image of his majesty, he still explained. Korakshu made a mistake, so Lord Poseidon punished it. Lord Poseidon is kind and generous, and is very kind to us. After hearing the words of the Unsullied, Sardari Daznak cleared his throat. My name is Sardari Daznak, and the Daznak family is an ancient slave-owning family in Meereen. Of course, there are other ancient families in Meereen. We want to visit Lord Jack. Go and inform him. Can't you see that we are all waiting here? A group of them have been blocked at the door by the Unsullied for a long time. The reason is naturally that Lord Poseidon is dealing with family affairs. This made the nobles of Meereen feel neglected, especially since the one who stopped them was the Unsullied. If it weren't for Jack's face, they would have let their gladiators kill the group of Unsullied. At most, they would have to pay Jack 3 times the compensation. They were not short of money, but they couldn't let them feel shameless. There was no doubt that being stopped in the front yard by the Unsullied made them lose face. The captain of the Unsullied team winked at his men, signaling them to keep an eye on the nobles, and then he was going to the backyard to ask Jack for instructions. At this moment, a blood-red figure rushed out, and everyone hurriedly dodged. Then the blood-red figure suddenly jumped and flew to the big tree in the yard. Only then did everyone see the full appearance of the figure. A giant dragon with a strange appearance. Seeing the giant dragon that had disappeared for more than 100 years, everyone was surprised and had a strong curiosity on their faces. And Korakshu was also confused. Why are there so many people outside? Didn't these people see me being beaten up in a mess? At this time, Jack, who had chased out, also found the people in the yard. The Unsullied hurried forward to explain the origins of this group of people. After listening to the Unsullied's explanation, Jack also understood the identity of this group of people, the nobles of Meereen. And the purpose of coming to see him was also very simple. Just to see the Sky Overlord that had been extinct for 100 years, the dragon. Putting the shoes in his hand on the ground calmly, Jack instantly turned from an angry old father into an elegant noble. You all came to visit without telling me in advance. It is said that family disgrace should not be made public. Now I am embarrassed. Jack's words were full of meaning, and Sardari Daznak also heard what Jack meant. I heard that the father of dragons was a guest in Meereen. As the master of Meereen, it is really wrong not to entertain him well. Sardari emphasized the pronunciation of the word master. Jack smiled, then made an inviting gesture and invited everyone to the courtyard. Go prepare 2 tables. No, 3 tables of banquets. There are many distinguished guests coming today, and I haven't prepared well. Jack ordered the servants to prepare the banquet, and did not forget to mock the arrogance of the Meereen nobles. It was night soon, the heat dissipated, and the city of Meereen was brightly lit, with the children of freemen and nobles everywhere. Meereens rarely rode horses in the city, but preferred to use sedan chairs and sedan chairs carried by slaves. In the yard rented by Jack, more than a dozen nobles were drinking and talking happily with Jack, and Korakshu was lying obediently at Jack's feet. Although Jack smiled at these people on the surface, he actually wanted them to get out quickly. If they hadn't brought gifts, Jack wouldn't even want to treat them to this meal. Meereenese are a very cunning race, and the most annoying thing for an honest man like Jack is dealing with cunning people. Mr. Jack, your dragon looks very obedient, but I heard that the dragons of the Mother of Dragons are very disobedient. Is this true? Costas Carol asked. What's your name? Jack looked at Costas Carol. My name is Costas, and I am the heir of the ancient Collar family. Who is Galaza? Galara to you. Do you know my cousin? Crystal asked in surprise. Hearing this, Jack had a general idea of Costas' identity. Galaza Galari is a high-ranking priestess of Gaia's in Meereen, known as the Green Saint, and is about 80 years old. This family showed less hostility to Daenerys Targaryen's rule. After Daenerys Targaryen conquered Meereen, Galaza Galar became one of her advisors. Gunny initially wanted to abolish the wearing of tokar robes, but Galaza Galari advised her to give up the idea and insisted that she must wear tokar robes, otherwise she would be hated forever. However, the Giscari of Meereen still regarded Dany as a barbaric conqueror and absurd outsider, and the Queen of Meereen should show herself as an ancient Gis lady. I saw her once in the distance by chance, some time ago. Her hair was white, and her skin was as thin as parchment, but the years had not dimmed the brilliance in her eyes. Her eyes were a breathtaking green, which contrasted with the green robe of the Green Saint. Thank you for your compliment. My cousin is the most gentle and knowledgeable person in Meereen. Costas Carol said proudly. The nobles of Meereen finally put away a bit of their arrogance when they saw Jack's high evaluation of the Green Saint. No matter how many prejudices both sides had against each other, at least on the surface, the guests and the host had a good time. The scorching sun began to scorch Meereen again. The slaves began a busy day, and the nobles hid in the comfortable pyramid. The sun shone on Jack's face through the window. After he opened his eyes dazedly, he found that Vitelli had begun to show off his verbal skills. More than 10 minutes later, after Vitelli finished his breakfast milk, he began to serve Jack to dress and wash. Your technique is getting better and better. It seems that Yager has taught you a lot of skills. Veteral pouted unhappily. I'm over 10 years old. When can I serve you? Over 10 years old. I'm not in a hurry. Why are you in a hurry? What if it cracks? No, Sister Ellie said, it's elastic. Many slaves can have children in their teens. Jack took the towel and wiped his face. He felt refreshed and then said, Did your Sister Ellie tell you how high the mortality rate of 14-year-old children is? After hearing this, Vitril muttered timidly, No, less than 30%. Haha, 30% is high. which means that slaves are not worth much. Many slave owners will use slaves with high appearance as breeding tools, so that the offspring bred in this way have high appearance and can be sold at a very high price. Jack, dressed, was about to take Vatil to the arena to play, but then an Unsullied came to report that when he went to feed him this morning, he found that Korekshu was missing. Jack frowned when he heard this. He almost never tied Korekshu up. There was a clear hierarchy between Korekshu and him. He was the master, and Korekshu never ran around without his order. But Jack soon ruled out the possibility that Korekshu was stolen. Korekshu is no longer the young dragon it was before. Korekshu with a wingspan of 2 meters is unlikely to be stolen. What's more, Korekshu is in the room next to Jack, and the door is guarded by Unsullied. So Jack guessed that it is very likely that Korekshu has been hunting by himself for some time, which has led to Korekshu's habit of hunting by himself, so he went out hunting. In this regard, Jack had no choice but to ask several Unsullied to go out to get information. Meereen is not the Satchels. It would be bad if it was attacked. You know, the fragile scales of the young dragons can't even defend against bows and arrows. At this time, Karax, who was out hunting, had flown out of Meereen and entered the sphere of influence of Yunkai. At the same time, outside the city of Yunkai, Daenerys met Mero, the Titan bastard, and 2 other captains. Your Majesty, please allow me to introduce you to the captain of the Second Sons, Mero of Bravos. Puranda Nakatsun and Barristan looked at the young man on the far right. Dario Naharis. Dario introduced himself, and then nodded slightly to show friendliness. Mero showed a disdainful smile on his face, stepped forward a few steps, and looked at Daenerys. Are you the mother of dragons? Daenerys smiled, and said nothing. The meaning was self-evident. I must have played with you in Kunyuan, silver hair, purple eyes. I am too familiar with you, Mero said with a mocking face. Watch your tongue. Jorah couldn't listen anymore. If it wasn't for Dany's order, he would have drawn his sword directly. But Mero didn't care at all. Instead, he looked at Jorah provocatively and asked, Why stop? I don't mind her little tongue. Mero actually went forward and sat not far from Daenerys. That woman licked my buttocks. That skill is really innate. As he said that, Mero stretched out his tongue and flicked it in the air. You little slave girl, bring the wine, Mero said to Missandei. Dany suppressed her anger and said with a smile, There are no slaves here. Besides, the prostitute you have in Kunyuan should be a descendant of Blackfire. I will introduce a Blackfire to you someday, and pass on your words to him intactly. Oh really? Then his skills must be very good. But unfortunately I don't like men. Besides, after the war is over, you will all be slaves, Mero said nonchalantly. Unless I give the order. Mero looked at Dany arrogantly, with a self-righteous smile on his face. I don't believe that I can't send it out. Even if you add Yonkai's slave soldiers, your people are not as many as my Unsullied ones, right? Dany tried to negotiate with Mero. Barristan added promptly, We have 10,000 Unsullied. Dany, I'm just a young woman who doesn't understand the ways of war. Perhaps a commander as experienced in the battlefield as you is willing to explain to me how you can win. At this time Dario spoke. I hope this old man can use his sword skills better than his words. You only have 9,000 Unsullied, excluding the Unsullied who manage the Free People soldiers. You have at most 8,000 Unsullied. Go to war. And you have no siege equipment, no war horses, nothing. So we will not necessarily lose. After hearing this, the smile on Dany's face disappeared, and Dario also looked at Dany with a slightly thoughtful look. You can be the leader at such a young age? He is not the leader. He is the captain.
Puranda explained.
Even if you go by the number of people you said, with such a disparity in strength, your chances of winning are still slim. The smile on Dante's face completely disappeared at this moment. I will pay you the same fee, or even more, Dany said seriously. At this time Mero didn't listen to Daenerys at all. He was looking at Missandei, pouring wine for him with a perverted look, and then suddenly stretched his head and smelled Missandei's peps. Missandei quickly ducked away, and glanced at Mero with disgust. Puranda said at this time, The contract is our lifeline. If the lifeline is cut off, no one will be willing to sign a contract with the Second Sons. Does your Second Son regiment still have credibility? At this moment a mocking voice suddenly sounded from outside the camp. Then a handsome young man walked in, followed by a group of unsullied ones. The young man's disdainful ridicule aroused Mero's dissatisfaction. He looked at Dany with an unhappy expression. "Is this Sissy the pretty boy you raised?" Then Mero said to the boy, "What, did you feel angry because I teased your master?" Barristan's expression changed, and he immediately warned, "Watch your words, or you may lose your life." Barristan knows Jack's temper well. Once Jack kills Mero, there will be no possibility of cooperation with the Second Sons, and a war may even break out directly. When Jack left again, they would be the ones who were tricked. So Barristan reminded him aloud. Jack first stepped forward and hugged Missandei's flexible waist, and then sat on the other side of Daenerys. Missandei's face was slightly red, but she did not resist. When Jack went to find Daenerys before, he also liked to hold her and talk to Dany. She was almost used to it. Of course, the most important thing is that Jack is young, handsome, rich, and powerful. Not to mention the identity gap Missandei cannot refuse, and Missandei does not hate Jack himself. "Are you the bastard son of Titan? Why are you called this name? Is it because your old nuns can marry anyone, so she doesn't know who your father is, so she just gave you this nickname? I may not know your name, but my name is Jack Poseidon. Has your old man mentioned my name to you?" "That's enough." Mero stared at Jack with an ugly face. "Little beast, I will train you well after the battle so that you can't even think about dying." Daenerys chuckled. "Then I'm afraid Captain Mero has no chance. Jack is not my favorite boy. Although I really want to do this, I don't have the strength yet. In addition, this is what I want to introduce to you. Descendant of Blackfyre, Jack Blackfyre." After speaking, Dany also cast a meaningful look at Jack, as if to say, "Why can't my little boy come over? Why is he always holding my maid?" Jack put Missandei's legs on his lap, and then put his hands into Missandei's few clothes. "Don't call me Blackfyre, call me Poseidon. I don't like Blackfyre very much. Surname. Whether in Westeros or Essos, bastard children are not a compliment. Okay, Captain Mero, this is the descendant of Blackfyre. I want to introduce to you, Jack Poseidon, a powerful leader who oversees thousands of Unsullied." In Dany's impression, Jack is a pirate leader, but for Jack, pirates are just the first way to make a fortune. There is no way out, just being a pirate, unless you can conquer the city-state. How much money can you make by robbing merchant ships and coastal villages? Then Dany ignored Mero and asked Jack, "Why are you here?" "My son was lost. Some people said they saw him coming this way, so I ran all the way to Yunkai." "Ha ha, maybe your son has been captured and castrated by the slave owner. I believe your son will become an excellent Unsullied in a few years." Then Mero looked up at Grey Worm and said, "Just like him." Upon hearing this, Grey Worm glanced at Mero, suppressed the urge to cut him into pieces, and continued to stand behind Daenerys intently. "If in a few years my son can really be as obedient as the Unsullied, then I will really be thankful to God. By the way, was he smelling your pussy just now? Maybe when he leaves you can produce some pink poop and give it to him as a gift so that he can have some snacks tonight," Jack said to Missandei. Missandei looked disgusted and said in a disgusted tone, "Can you please stop saying such disgusting things? His appearance makes me sick." After saying that, Missandei got out of Jack's arms and turned to pour wine for Jack. "Sorry, I won't do it next time." Jack apologized to Missandei directly, and then said to Mero, "It seems that you can only eat dog shit. Oh, I forgot. You have horses and people. You can eat plantas, darios, or even horses. Oh, why are you looking at me so crazy? Don't think about it. I would rather give it to my dog than to you," Jack shouted exaggeratedly, as if he had encountered something terrible. Mero was so angry that his face was dizzy. He stood up and came to Jack. Just as he was about to speak, he was kicked 5 or 6 meters away by Jack. Jack's physical fitness was strengthened 3 times by the worker ant serum, and the heart of the ocean slowly strengthened Jack's physical strength, making Jack's physical fitness very terrifying now. Although Jack thought that the heart of the ocean would not strengthen his body at the beginning, as time went on, Jack found that the heart of the ocean would continue to strengthen his body in order to adapt to the deep sea, which was a pleasant surprise. This scene directly shocked everyone present. No one expected that Jack, a fair-skinned boy, would have such a strong power. Especially Barristan. You know, kicking a strong man 5 or 6 meters away, this power is definitely not weaker than the mountain, and even much stronger than the mountain. Jack sat back in his seat and said calmly, "Don't get so close to me, buddy. Have you really eaten shit? It stinks before you come over. Hope it can be sent out." Mero stood up again and returned to his seat with the help of Piranda. He stared at Jack, but he didn't expect that Jack's power was so great. However, the kick just now was a surprise, but skills and equipment are still needed on the battlefield. Mero believed that Jack would not be his opponent when fully armed, so he was already thinking about how to torture Jack after capturing him. As for what Daenerys said, I'm sorry, Mero was so angry that he didn't listen to a word. Daenerys saw this and spoke again. "The contract is not a problem. As long as you fight for me, you will no longer need the contract in the future. After I take back the 7 kingdoms, you will have wealth, castles, and titles to choose from." Tyrael heard the same words. "You have no warships, no siege equipment, and no war horses. How can you fight the 7 kingdoms?" Daenerys looked proud when she heard this. "I didn't have an army a few months ago, and I didn't even have dragons more than a year ago." Looking at Mero, Dany directly gave an ultimatum. "I'll give you 2 days to consider." Seeing this, Mero sat up slightly and showed a serious expression. "Hurry up and show me your Sayuintat. Let me take a look and then decide whether you are worthy of my fighting for you." This sentence was extremely insulting. Grey Worm took out the dagger and said, "Your Majesty, do you want me to cut off his tongue?" "No, he is my guest," Daenerys said. Since she invited several people to negotiate, as the host, naturally, she cannot do anything to the guests. Otherwise, there will be no way to negotiate in the future. Daenerys will still abide by this rule. Otherwise, Mero will not be able to get out of this military tent if Dany has any ideas of the Frey family. At this moment, a dull dragon roar suddenly came from above the head, and then a young red dragon broke open the tent and flew in, dragging a goat on its paws. "Hang!" Kulkaku roared in at the others, and the blood at the corner of his mouth made Kulkaku even more monstrous. Even Mero, who had experienced many battles, couldn't help but hide back. "Mother of dragons, take care of your dragon, or I won't mind killing it." Mero was still arrogant, but it's not his fault. Even Daenerys couldn't help but instinctively hide back. After all, this was not her son. "I'm afraid I can't control it, because this is not my child," Daenerys said slightly nervously. "You are the mother of dragons. If this is not your dragon, who else could it be? Calaxio, where did you steal the sheep? You didn't kill innocent shepherds, did you?" Then, under the astonished gazes of Mero and the other 3, Calaxio dragged the goat to Jack's legs and began to enjoy the prey. Jack rubbed Cold's big head and said, "As long as you don't kill anyone, you must get my order before you kill anyone." After speaking, Jack suddenly raised his head and glanced at Mero and the other 3, who suddenly became nervous. Calaxio seemed to feel his master's gaze, and stood up directly to stare at Mero and the 3 of them, growling in his throat, sparks bursting out between his sharp teeth. The 3 of Mero immediately put their hands on the long knives at their waists, ready to fight Jack at any time. However, Jack just smiled softly and said, "Kulak, hurry up and eat." After hearing this, Calaxio immediately began to feast, and no longer paid attention to the 3 of Mero. Upon seeing this, the 3 of Mero slowly lowered their guard, but they were not prepared to stay here any longer, so they stood up and prepared to leave. Daenerys stopped Mero. "I'll give you 2 days to think about it. Sarah Jorah, give them a cart of wine as a gift for this meeting." Jorah took the order and led a team of people to get the wine, and Mero accepted the cart of wine without ceremony. "But I didn't expect that this car of wine would become the poison that ruined the second sons, let alone that Daario had already fallen in love with the beautiful dragon queen and was about to give their heads to Dany." After Mero and the others left, Dany turned her attention to Jack. "When will you go back? Aren't you going to rob on the sea?" Her voice was slightly teasing. "Robbery? How much money can you make? I have sent part of the large ship to Braavos for renovation, and the other part has to go into business. How can I have time to rob?" Atlantis has a total of 223 ships, including 39 large ships, all of which were sent to Braavos for modification. A number of long ships were also ordered, and the remaining small and medium-sized merchant ships were all used to purchase supplies. There is no ship to rob. As for the giant ship snatched from the 13 giants, it was so slow that you couldn't even smell their farts, let alone rob it. "Then how long can your money last? How about you serve as my navy commander, and I will support you and your army?" Daenerys is still obsessed with recruiting Jack. If you can take Meereen, then I will serve as your naval commander, and I will even transport your army back to Westeros in the future. For Jack, there is no harm in joining Dany's side in the early stage. The entire Game of Thrones world revolves around Dany regaining the Iron Throne. Therefore, there must be a battle between Dany and the Baratheon dynasty, and Jack himself can make a huge profit from it based on his foresight. And if Dany was not assassinated by Jon Snow, who knew everything in the end, then Dany would definitely be the final winner. However, there is a big difference between the series and the original novel, and Jack is not sure what it will look like in the end. The most important thing is the dragon. The gender of the dragon has always been a mystery. Regarding the reproduction of dragons, Brother Bath, Maester Mukun, and Maester Thomas have completely different views. In short, there are 3 views. The first is that dragons have no gender and reproduce themselves. The second is that dragons are hermaphrodites and will automatically change their gender when they reach age. The third is that dragons are divided into male and female. According to Jack's own observations, he found that until now, Khorrakshu has not shown obvious gender characteristics. Before, Jack also secretly observed the 3 brothers of Drogon, and they also had no obvious gender characteristics. This means that the dragon is likely to be hermaphroditic or genderless in its infancy. Later, it will slowly transform into male or female during the growth process, but the basis and influencing factors of this transformation are not yet clear. Maybe it is related to the influence of the owner's gender, or maybe it is related to temperature. These can only wait for Jack to study slowly, but in any case, Jack must choose to stand on Daenerys' side. It's not just because Jack wants to breed dragons, but more importantly, Jack's own identity, the descendant of Blackfyre, the blood branch of the Targaryen family, and he also has dragons, like Daenerys. These external conditions doomed the Baratheon dynasty of Westeros to not be on good terms with him, and even to default to Dinty's camp and then be hostile to him. So considering all the above conditions, before there is the power to overturn the world, it is the best choice to temporarily join Dany's camp. What's more, Dany is a woman. A woman can be a queen, and can also be one of a man's harem. When Dany stays in Meereen to rule, Jack can completely help when Dany is trapped in the Meereen knot. With Dany's love-brain personality, there may be a chance to take Dany in with her dragon. Thinking of this, Jack looked at Dany with a little more desire in his eyes, and the undisguised desire naturally fell into Dany's eyes. Dany not only did not avoid it, but also gave Jack a provocative wink. In Dany's mind now, Jack is a perfect marriage partner. He has ships, troops, and dragons. Most importantly, Jack has the Blackfyre blood, which can greatly guarantee the purity of the Targaryen family's bloodline. Since Jack had nothing to do in Meereen, he stayed with Dany. In the evening, Daenerys got up from Jack's arms with a little dizziness. In the afternoon, she and Jack discussed the next plan while drinking. Because Dany wanted to get more wonderful ideas from Jack, she was drunk by Jack without knowing it. After getting up, she found that Jack was not drunk at all. Dany sat on Jack directly and said unhappily, "You are not drunk at all." The look seemed to say, "You didn't get drunk and went to bed with me. Wouldn't you let Miss Andy serve me?" "Of course I'm not drunk. How can I get drunk by drinking wine?" The alcohol content of wine in the world of Game of Thrones is between 10 and 20 degrees, which is not considered a high alcohol content. In addition, Jack's body has been strengthened and his metabolism is fast, so it is impossible for him to get drunk. Jack flipped over and swapped the positions of both parties, then said, "But you really can't drink. You get drunk after a few drinks, and you're still drunk. You have to ride on top. Isn't it nice to be on top?" After making up his mind, Jack deliberately asked Dany to hold a banquet, and then got Dany drunk, and took Dany's body first, before talking about other things. When Dany heard Jack's words, she showed shame and anger on her face, especially now that she was the lower position and Jack was the upper position. "That's because you always made me drink. You really have the nerve to say that," Dany said angrily. "I thought you had a good alcohol tolerance. How can you not drink at a banquet?" After saying that, Jack found the entrance to the garden and walked in and then began to walk back and forth quickly, preparing to water the flower core inside and spread pollen. Dany, who was originally preparing to refute, suddenly lost her confidence. After all, her house was robbed, and the most important thing now was to protect the house. More than half an hour later, Jack left Dany's tent refreshed and prepared to get something to eat. He was hungry after the exercise. After Jack left, Missandei came in and began to wipe Dande's body. "Your Majesty, I remember that you can drink a lot." Missandei finally couldn't hold back the doubts in her heart and asked. Dany laughed. "I don't know what that guy thought of at noon," and his eyes were suddenly full of desire when he looked at me. "In this case, I will give him a chance. Anyway, I won't suffer any loss."
Your Majesty, it is very likely that your dragon attracted him. I think it's better to be careful.
After all, everyone can see his ability to tame dragons. Missandei felt that she still had to remind Dany not to let Jack take the young dragon away. Dany gave Missandei a reassuring look. "Don't worry, I don't completely believe him. I know what my confidence is and who I should trust. Daenerys is not stupid." Unlike the stupid image in American TV series, the character image in the original book is more intelligent and adaptable. And she thought it was a good thing that Jack had some plans for her so that she could tie Jack to her pirate ship. What she feared most was that Jack had no interest in her at all. In that case, she couldn't even win over Jack, let alone a marriage. After all, a marriage mainly depends on how much help both parties can provide to each other. If the two people in the marriage are originally in love, then it is just luck. "Missandei, go prepare a bucket of water. I want to take a shower. He made me all over." "Okay, wait a minute." Missandei turned around to prepare hot water. Jack came to the cooking camp, where a large amount of supplies were stored. "Is there anything to eat? Get me some."
My lord, we are preparing to cook. Please wait a moment.
A cook was cleaning the ingredients. Jack raised his eyebrows. Normally, when there is no battle, the army does not eat this meal at night. Is Dany preparing a night attack? Thinking of this, Jack suddenly remembered that in the original book of Game of Thrones, Daenerys gave Marrow a cart of wine and took advantage of the Second Sons being drunk that night to launch a night attack and completely annihilate the Second Sons on the flank. This is different from the American TV series, where Daario killed the two captains and then defected to Daenerys. But in the original book, the Second Sons were hired by the slave city-state Yunkai to resist the threat of Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons. They were on the left wing of the defense line, facing Daenerys' army. They were commanded by Marrow, known as the Bastard of the Titans. In the negotiations with Daenerys, he asked for more gold in exchange for his support. In addition, he also took a cart of good wine from Daenerys back to the Second Sons, ready to enjoy it when negotiating the price she offered, and Daenerys readily agreed to send the wine. The Second Sons got drunk, and that night, Daenerys' men launched an attack, easily defeating the defenseless Second Sons, and Marrow had no choice but to flee. The remaining mercenaries elected Brown Ben Plum as their leader. They joined Daenerys' army. Jack frowned. He didn't know whether this world was based on the American TV series or the original book, but it was undeniable that he would inevitably change the direction of the plot to a certain extent in the future. Thinking of this, Jack stopped thinking about it. He was not afraid of changing the plot. As long as his own strength was strong enough, it didn't matter how the plot changed. Just like the so-called natural barriers in Westeros, Poseidon's atomic breath could even open up the inner world, not to mention the walls that even dragon flames could not stop. Even if he didn't rely on Poseidon and only relied on Coracho, Jack was not inferior to Westeros. To be honest, in the American TV series, Dany directly flew a dragon to her face, and Cersei had no chance at all, let alone the loss of Viserion and Rhaegal. "My lord, has His Majesty woken up?" At this moment, Grey Worm appeared in front of Jack. He woke up. "Are you planning to attack the Second Sons on the flank at night?" Grey Worm was stunned, not understanding how Jack knew, but still said, "Yes, Yunkai has 5,000 slave soldiers and then 2,000 mercenaries. If the mercenaries are defeated, the slave soldiers of Yunkai will be easier to deal with." Then Jack returned to Dany's tent, and Dany had already washed herself. "Are you going to attack the Second Sons tonight?" "Yes. Otherwise, why would I send them a cart of wine? Once the Second Sons are destroyed, I will incite the slave soldiers to rebel and completely liberate Yunkai. Then I will return to Meereen to hide some weapons, and then see if I can use the same method to incite the slaves of Meereen." Dottie's eyes lit up. "Yes, the slave owners of Meereen don't know that I have slept with the father of dragons at this time, so I can let Jack go to Meereen to prepare." "Okay, do you need me to give you some Unsullied?" Dany asked. "No, the Sea King is nearby, and there are 300 Unsullied on the ship. If there are too many people, it will attract the attention of the slave owners, and the gain will outweigh the loss. Then the Marian accomplice will be left to you, so be careful." After that, Danny kissed Jack lightly on the corner of his mouth. Jack patted Danny's butt. "Don't worry, no one is more afraid of death than me." That night, Jack rode back to Meereen, and Daenerys' night attack plan successfully defeated the Second Sons. Under Daenerys' deception, Pyranda and Daddario chose to join Daenerys with the remaining people. Dany incorporated the Second Sons into her army, and let Jorah be the leader. Pyranda and Daario became deputy leaders. The Second Sons, with only a few hundred people left, had no confidence to refuse, and could only obey Dany's orders. The only pity was that Marrow escaped in the chaos, and not killing Marrow was always a hidden danger. A mansion in Meereen. Jack opened Korakshu's mouth and reached out to touch the 2 fuel pipes inside his mouth. Korakshu's body trembled when the fuel pipes were touched. Obviously, the fuel pipes were very sensitive and fragile. "Quiet. It's okay. Believe me. Korakshu." Jack gently comforted Korakshu. Then he continued to study the fuel pipes in Korakshu's mouth. It is said that the dragon's dragon flame is fire magic, and the disappearance and appearance of magic coincide with the disappearance and appearance of the dragon. So this statement has been generally recognized by the warlock community. Jack did not care about the connection between the appearance of the dragon and the magic tide, but noticed an organ in the dragon's mouth. Jack named this organ a fuel pipe. The pair of fuel pipes grew on both sides of the dragon's mouth. Korakshu's fuel pipe was a little closer to the inside, while Drogon's was very obvious. Jack has carefully observed Korakshu's fire breathing, and it is certain that when it breathes fire, the fuel pipe will spray out some mist-like combustible gas. But Jack has not figured out how Korakshu ignites these gases. Perhaps it is bioelectricity, or perhaps it is magic. But no matter what the method is, it is enough to make Jack marvel at creatures like dragons. In the previous life, many biologists studied why animals on the blue planet did not evolve the ability to breathe fire. After all, in the era of prehistoric biological evolution explosion, flame can be said to be the most powerful weapon on Earth. In the end, the most widely spread and most recognized statement is that the evolution of the fire-breathing function is too cost-effective, because if you want to breathe fire, you must evolve a large enough lung capacity, fuel injectors, and fuel storage tanks. The complex evolutionary process has made animals give up the characteristic of breathing fire. But the dragon in Game of Thrones, although it is a nuclear bomb-level air force, it is simply a pterosaur that can breathe fire, which is far from the dragon in mythology and legends. This made Jack very interested in the evolution of dragons. As for the legend, dragons were transformed by Valyrians using blood magic and pterosaurs. Jack sneered at this. He didn't believe that the Valyrians, a small nomadic people, would have such advanced blood magic. For a civilization like nomadic people who depend on the weather for food, it's good enough to be full. How can they have the leisure time to study such advanced blood magic? Unfortunately, Jack himself is not a biologist, and there is no such high-tech civilization to support Jack's research. Helplessly letting go of Korakshu, Jack patted the cage and ordered, "Enter." Korakshu got into the wooden cage, without hesitation. Although the wooden cage had no binding force, for Korakshu the real binding force came from the owner, not the wooden cage. "Great, good boy." Jack rubbed Korakshu's head, then opened the wooden cage, and let Korakshu out again. At this moment, an unsullied came in. "Your Majesty, what you asked for has been done. A total of 1,126 knives have been collected, and 300 unsullied have all sneaked into the city. Okay, hide the weapons, and wait. It will probably be a short time before news from Yunkai arrives." Sure enough, that afternoon, the news that Yunkai had been conquered by Daenerys reached Meereen. The nobles of Meereen held an emergency meeting to discuss how to deal with Dany, who had 9,000 unsullied and an unknown number of slave soldiers. In the end, everyone gave up the idea of hiring soldiers. The hiring money for mercenaries was too expensive. Ordinary mercenaries usually had to pay about 100 gold dragons to participate in the war, and senior officers had to pay more. The walls of Meereen were tall and strong enough, and there were enough slave soldiers in the city. There were also many gladiators who could participate in the war, so they were not afraid of Dany relying on the walls. The last step was to build walls and clear the fields. A fire directly burned down the manor farms outside the city, destroying all available resources including food and cash crops, and not giving the Mother of Dragons any resources. After the discussion, everyone started to act immediately. Everyone was fully prepared, but they forgot about the sewers in Meereen. On the other side, after conquering Yunkai, Dany liberated nearly 300,000 slaves. Everyone held Dany in their hands and raised her high, shouting, "Mother." Dany enjoyed the feeling of being relied on by everyone, and also enjoyed the pride of being admired and surrounded by everyone. But after enjoying it, she still had to consider the reality. After confirming that tens of thousands of people were willing to leave with her, Dany knew that this would bring great pressure to logistics, but she still gritted her teeth and took on these burdens. The team expanded several times, and the speed of Dany's army slowed down a lot. It was a total of 63 miles from Meereen to Yunkai. As Dany continued to approach Meereen, she became more and more angry. On this road, a slave child would be nailed to the cross and died tragically every mile. Jorah came to Dany and said, "Your Majesty, Meereen has adopted the tactic of building walls and clearing the land. All the slave estates around have been burned down. There is no supplies at all." Dany's chest rose and fell slightly. She didn't expect that the slave owners in Meereen would do such a thing. The building of walls and clearing the land by the nobles of Meereen has undoubtedly greatly increased the logistical pressure of Daenerys' army. Before, she brought these new free people with her just to rob the estates along the way, but she didn't expect Meereen to directly build walls and clear the land. It's okay. Although our logistical pressure is great, it's not unbearable. After conquering Meereen, we can still get supplies. After we liberate the 3 cities in Slaver's Bay, we can take Jack's ship to cross the sea to attack Westeros, and take back the Iron Throne that belongs to me. Jorah's face turned red when he heard this. As a man, and even more of a senior bootlicker, he naturally understood what it meant for the cunning Jack to lend Dany a warship. It was a pity that he was not there that day, and the drunk queen was tricked by Jack and lost her body. It was originally only a few days' journey, but Dany's army took more than a week to reach Meereen. After setting up camp not far away, Daenerys led the vanguard troops to the foot of Meereen. At this time, the city wall was full of nobles watching the show, and a large number of slave soldiers were preparing city defense equipment. At this time, the gate of Meereen slowly opened a gap, and then a horseman rushed out and came to the opposite side of Dany. This is the tradition of Meereen. Send out their most powerful gladiators in the arena, and then fight one-on-one with the enemy. This is a good way to boost morale and intimidate the enemy. Jorah explained. At this time, Jack in the stands was watching the urinating gladiator, which was a mockery of Dany. How dare a rootless army, led by a woman, attack Meereen? Faced with the humiliating action of peeing, Dany was a little annoyed. This guy kept insulting Dany, but Dany didn't understand. Then Missandei translated the words of the Meereen champion. Hearing this humiliating word, Barristan said that there was no need to pay attention to this meaningless provocation. And Jorah retorted, "If we want to win the support of more than half of the slave soldiers in Meereen, we can't ignore it." Dany turned and looked at the generals behind her. "I have something to say to the slaves of Meereen, but before that, who can shut that guy up?" "Do we have a champion willing to fight?" Dany asked. "Please grant me this honor." "Your Majesty, I will never let you down," Grey Worm asked directly. Now the people under Dany have begun to divide into factions. Jorah, Barristan, and the newly joined Prender and Dario have each formed a faction, and Grey Worm is no exception. And Grey Worm is no longer the numb slave before. He has his own ideas. However, unlike other people who pursue interests, fighting for Dany and getting Dany's praise and trust are what Grey Worm desires most. However, Dany rejected Grey Worm's request. The opponent is Meereen's champion gladiator, who is also a knight. Grey Worm is at a disadvantage as an infantryman. "You are the commander of the Unsullied. I can't let you take risks." At this time, Barristan also expressed his position. "Your Majesty, I have absolute confidence in fighting alone in the world. So you should stay with me." Dany rejected Barristan without thinking. Although Barristan's strength is also very strong, he is so old after all. If something goes wrong, Dany will lose another commanding talent. Then Jorah also asked to fight, but was still rejected by Dany, saying that "You are my capable general and advisor, and I can't let you take risks." Finally, Dario asked to fight. "I have joined you the shortest time, and I am not the commander of the Unsullied. Please allow me to fight for you." The Dario here is different from the American TV series. Although he is still attracted by Daenerys' beauty, he did not kill Mero and Piranda as in the American TV series. Instead, he surrendered to Daenerys after Mero was defeated. Just like in the original book. Dario looked at Dario with Bluebeard and agreed to his fight. Dario originally planned to let Dario fight. As a mercenary who joined later, Dario did not trust him very much. Dario rejected Daenerys' suggestion to ride a horse. Horses are much dumber than people. Don't worry, Your Majesty, I won't let you down. Then Dario came to the front, and the champion gladiator of Meereen City immediately jumped on the horse and rushed towards Dario, amid the cheers of the Meereen nobles. However, Dario drew out his dagger calmly, and when the Meereen champion approached, his eyes fixed, and he threw the dagger in his hand directly, hitting the right eye of the Meereen gladiator's horse accurately, in the surprised eyes of everyone. Hit by the dagger, the horse fell to the ground, and the champion gladiator of Meereen was thrown away by the horse before he could react. Seeing the Meereen champion thrown in front of him by the horse, Dario elegantly drew out his septisaur and cut off the head of the Meereen champion. The slave owners and nobles on the wall cursed, thinking that this gladiator's silver spear was useless. The angry slave owner immediately ordered the archer to shoot, but unfortunately the range was not enough, and all the arrows were shot at Dario's feet. Then, in the angry eyes of the Meereen nobles, Dario urinated, and the humiliation was self-evident. Jack on the wall saw this scene and became playful. He then took the strong bow from the unsolid beside him and came to the wall. He pushed the noble in front of him away. After being pushed away, the noble was about to scold him angrily, but was frightened by the roar of Korpakshu, who had been following Jack. He was stunned and at a loss. Korpakshu was very good at sensing Jack's emotions and cooperating with Jack, which was shown in its ancestor period. Korpakshu, during the Dance of the Dragons, was able to perfectly understand the thoughts and emotions of the rider. Aemon Targaryen. It is worth mentioning that Aemon Targaryen's Korpakshu was the dragon that breathed fire most frequently. Jack could also see this from Korpakshu. Jack guessed that it might be related to Korpakshu's slender neck. Jack put an arrow on the bow, and then suddenly let go. The arrow flew towards Dario, rapidly. Before Dario could pull up his pants, an arrow cut his cheek. Dario, who was attacked, immediately stepped back a few steps, and looked up, only to see a young man with short blonde and white hair retracting his bow and arrow with a smile on his face. Dario recognized the man instantly. Wasn't this the young man who kicked Mero away that day? He was actually from Meereen. Ignoring the nobles who were still cursing on the city wall, Dario reported his discovery to Daenerys, while Dario looked calm, as if she had expected it long ago. Dany stepped forward and came behind dozens of arrows. After confirming that she was in a safe position, Daenerys began her speech. Dany started from the beginning of her liberation of Astapor and continued to talk about it until now. The general meaning was that I liberated the slaves along the way. I am not your enemy. Your enemy is the slave owner. Some slave owners who were watching the show on the city wall found that something was wrong, so they immediately called their slaves to leave. Forward! Dany gave an order, and several catapults were pushed out. Fire! The catapults started, and a large number of wooden barrels were thrown onto the walls of Meereen. As the wooden barrels broke, countless severed slave shackles fell. A young slave squatted down, picked up a shackle, then slowly turned his head and looked at his master. For a moment, the atmosphere on the wall began to become subtle. Hiss! A roar sounded, and 3 young dragons appeared above the wall and began to demonstrate. For a moment, the entire wall began to riot, and countless nobles left with their slaves. Seeing this scene, Jack realized that Dany's first step had been successful, and it was estimated that she would start walking down the sewer tonight. Seeing this, Jack also stood up and prepared to leave, but Desnok called Jack at this time. "Dragonfather, please wait a moment." Jack turned around, put his hand on the hilt of the sword, and showed a puzzled look on his face. "Mr. Sardari, what do you want me to do?" Sardari Desnok showed an embarrassed look on his face, and asked tentatively, "Dragonfather, can you take the trouble to let your real dragon drive away the 3 evil dragons?" Jack raised his eyebrows, not expecting this idea. "Lord Desnok, you are not kidding, right?" Jack used a polite title directly. "Dragon Mother has 3 dragons, and the black one is about the same size as my child. Do you want my child to die?" Sardari Desnok was embarrassed for a while. He knew Jack would not agree. After all, the feasibility was indeed not great, and it was very dangerous to fight 1 against 3, and losing one's life was not a joke. The dog is in good condition, and it is still very strong. Not bad, not bad. Night. After the incident in the morning, the entire city of Meereen fell into a very subtle atmosphere. For a while, slave owners and slaves kept glaring at each other. Inside Dany's base camp, Grey Worm, you will lead the team this time and sneak into the city through the sewers of Meereen at night. After that, Jack's people will pick you up. After inciting the slaves to rebel, we can occupy Meereen. Understood, Your Majesty. I will never let you down. Then Grey Worm took a team of Unsullied, carried a large number of weapons on his back, and rowed towards the sewers of Meereen in a small longboat. After hiding the ship, Grey Worm led people into the sewers of Meereen. The sewers of Meereen were not complicated, and soon Grey Worm came to the exit inside the city wall. Squeak, squeak. Grey Worm made a regular mouse cry. A few seconds later, Jack appeared with 2 Unsullied. Follow me, I will take you to the underground cage, where the slaves are kept. Just as Jack led people to the basement where the slaves lived, the slaves inside the basement were discussing what happened in the morning. She can save us. Everyone should hear her words. She said she would liberate us and give us freedom. Freedom, said a young slave. He longed for freedom. He was still young. You are just a fool. The masters are too strong, said a scrawny old man. The young slave did not agree with the old man's words. She said she would protect us, as long as we stand up and resist. Looking at the still silent slaves around him, the young slave continued to cheer everyone up. She defeated the master's strongest gladiator. Ignoring everyone who was looking at each other, he continued. She has a powerful army, and she can save us. Do you want to be in shackles for the rest of your life? As he spoke, he shook the collar around his neck, which bound him for the rest of his life. At this time, a middle-aged slave seemed to have been stabbed in a painful spot. I want to survive. Have you seen how they treat children? Then think about how they will treat us. I have experienced 2 slave rebellions, my child, and the results were the same. The slaves failed, and the masters succeeded. The old man who was thin at the beginning said, the masters continued to have supreme power, while the slaves were executed by Ling Chi. Just then Jack walked in with Grey Worm. The guards outside have been quietly eliminated, and Jack's 300 Unsullied have taken over the largest slave cage. All mortals are mortal. Grey Worm's voice attracted everyone's attention. I promise you, being free for one day is better than being a slave for a lifetime. The thin old man stood up and asked with a surprised look on his face, I know all the slaves here. Who are you? An Unsullied. I was captured by slave masters as a child and trained to be a Numsullied, but now I fight for Daenerys. She is the one who breaks the chains. The old man shook his head. You are the Unsullied. They taught you to fight since you were young. But the old man looked at the scrawny slaves behind him and said, we are just a group of ordinary slaves, not soldiers, and we have no weapons. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Grey Worm's face, and all the Unsullied opened the backpacks on their backs. They were full of weapons, including hundreds of daggers. Now we have it. Not only do we have the Mother of Dragons, but we also have the Father of Dragons. He has enough weapons to arm thousands of people. Brothers, every slave owner in Meereen has an average of 3 slaves. No one can give you freedom, only yourself. Father of the Dragon, I'm sorry. With all due respect, I heard that the Father of the Dragon has a very good relationship with the slave owners. Slave owners often visit the Father of the Dragon with gifts. Grey Worm didn't speak, but looked at Jack behind him. Everyone's eyes followed Grey Worm's gaze, and looked at Jack. Jack frowned. It was very different from the plot of American TV series. There are no guards here, like in the American TV series. This group of slaves are not like Grey Worm in the American TV series who was incited to rebel with just a few words. On the contrary, their fear of slave owners has penetrated deep into their bones, and only some young slaves showed signs of movement. Jack walked to the center of the crowd, and then under the slightly frightened eyes of the crowd, a 2-meter-long baby dragon slowly crawled in from the entrance, and finally crawled to Jack's feet. The momentum was almost built, and Jack could only do his best to incite these slaves to rebel. At this point, it would be a shame if it failed. Friends, listen to me. Now a precious opportunity to regain freedom is before us. Shouldn't everyone fight for it? Are you willing to wear a collar and live in a dark and damp basement with rats for the rest of your life? Do you know how luxurious the life of a slave owner is? Do you know how much milk and bread the slave owners of Marine waste every day? I tell you, 50,000 golden dragons. You lowly slaves will never see a golden dragon in your life, and they are throwing away 50,000 yuan every day. This amount of money can't even fit in a carriage. I can buy you more milk and bread than you can eat in a lifetime. You can live as humble as a bug and you don't have to eat soft white bread and fresh milk. However, they cannot take away everyone's remaining freedom and dignity. Dignity and freedom are our weapons. Our enemies are very powerful, but they are not slave owners, nor are they noble nobles. They are slaves. It is this slavery that has lasted for thousands of years, like a mountain that has broken your spine and smoothed your blood. You have been slaves for generations. You don't know the taste of freedom. But do you still not know the taste of slavery? Have you ever thought about your children? Would you rather watch your children eat pig food and be imprisoned and whipped for a lifetime, or would you rather fight a hand and let them taste the taste of white bread and milk? Friends, if we don't seize this opportunity and fight this battle, then our next generation will have to fight, and even the next generation will have to fight. Friends, we can't give up this opportunity. Slave owners are also people. They will die if they are killed. We must unite all the forces that can be united. We want to overthrow the slave owners who oppress us. We want to live in warm and comfortable stone houses. We want bread and milk on our dining table. We need a visionary leader who can lead you to crush the bones of slave owners, and this person is in front of you. I, the father of dragons, I promise that I will personally lead you to overthrow the slave owners. As long as we can overthrow the slave owners, everyone's table will be filled with endless food, and everyone can own their own house. But even though Jack's speech was eloquent and gave them a beautiful blueprint for the future, many older slaves were still full of hesitation and fear of the slave owners. But they were a minority, after all. A young slave stood up, waved his right hand, and shouted, "Overthrow them!" His face was flushed with excitement. Jack's words made him regain his desire for freedom and dignity. He was still young. He couldn't live a humble life like this. Jack pointed at the young man and said excitedly, "We will crush them." This completely ignited all the young slaves. They stood up and shouted frantically, "Overthrow them." To be honest, Jack didn't expect that the words he made up on the spot would have such a good effect. He just wanted to give it a try. It can only be said that these young slaves have not been completely enslaved. At least their souls are still passionate and yearning for freedom. This scene also infected other people. The thin old man who was not optimistic about this had a ruthless look in his eyes. He was old and had only a few years to live. His 3 sons died in the first 2 attempts to revolutionize. The 2 failed slave revolutions left him with a shadow. But this time is different. This time there is a charismatic and visionary leader. In this case, he will fight for it. What if it succeeds? Jack didn't notice the change in the old man. He still shouted hard, "Friends, a spark can start a prairie fire. Pick up the weapons on the ground. Open the city gates and cooperate with the Mother of Dragons to take down Mirren. Slogan, sparks can start a prairie fire. Sparks can start a prairie fire." It is not as easy as in American TV series to capture Mary. Slave owners also have an army composed of freemen. Although there are not many of them, they are well equipped. Slaves alone cannot successfully revolt. For example, the 400 guards on the city wall are composed of 100 freemen guards and 400 slave soldiers. Jack must fight quickly if he wants to take down the city wall. Fortunately, Jack has made sufficient preparations. The 300 Unsullied, under his command, carried about 1,000 weapons. After quickly arming the revolutionary army, Jack led his men to rush to the city wall without stopping. The freemen guards on the city wall soon found the traces of Jack and others. After all, in order to save time, Jack did not cover up the movement of the march. There is a situation. There are slaves rebelling. Gather, gather. The night watch guards quickly sounded the alarm. Soon the 2 sides met at the gate of the city, with 400 slave soldiers in front and 100 freemen guards hiding behind. For this group of free soldiers, they only need to use the slaves as cannon fodder and hold on until the reinforcements arrive. This is their best tactic in the past, but now they have forgotten one thing. They are facing the revolutionary army, the slave uprising army. Brothers, the army of the Mother of Dragons is ready outside the city. Your freedom is just around the corner. Freedom has taken 99 steps towards you. You only need to take one step towards freedom to get it. Jack's words undoubtedly made this group of young and middle-aged slave soldiers excited, and they hesitated for a while. At this time, the officer of the free guards behind him found that the slave soldiers began to waver, and in a hurry, he whipped them directly. Snap! The crisp whip sound instantly poked a hornet's nest, and the originally wavering slaves made a decision. Everyone turned around and pointed their spears at the free soldiers. Yes, that's it. Defend your freedom and dignity bravely, and crush them. As Jack roared, the slave soldiers guarding the city gate joined the rebels one after another, roaring angrily, and poked the free soldiers who were usually high and mighty into hedgehogs. After occupying the city gate, Jack quickly had the gate opened. Korakshu, go! After receiving the order, Korakshu immediately flapped his wings and flew high into the air, spewing long dragon flames. Not far away, Dany, who was waiting in full battle array, saw the scarlet dragon flames piercing the night sky, and immediately ordered the whole army to advance at full speed. In just a few minutes, they rushed into Meereen. The funny thing was that the defenders in Meereen were used to being loose, and they had not assembled since the alarm bell sounded. But it was good this way, giving Jack enough time. Afterwards, Jack met with Daenerys and asked Audiobook to lead the Unsullied to deal with the Great Lord, while Jack took the rest of the people to liberate the remaining slaves. The two sides had a clear division of labor. Dany led the Unsullied to clear out the Free Folk guards in Meereen, while the new Free Folk army that had followed Dany before began to burn, kill, and loot. In response, Dany could only assign a part of the Unsullied to guard the new Free Folks under her command. They could rob the slave owners of their money, but they were not allowed to rape and plunder. Otherwise, they would be killed on the spot. As time passed, countless liberated slaves recovered and began to madly retaliate against the slave owners and the great masters. The whole Meereen began to sound the wailing that would not sleep all night. Tonight was destined to be full of blood and hatred. Amid the wailing of the slave owners and the great masters, the sky finally turned white and dawn arrived. The first ray of sunlight shone from the horizon, penetrating the Targaryen dragon flag on the top of the great golden tower. Dany stood on the top of the pyramid, looking down at the whole Meereen with pride. In just one night, Meereen, the largest city in the Slave Bay, had become hers and was conquered by her. Just when Dany was feeling proud, a pair of big hands suddenly pressed her from behind. Dany, startled, looked back and saw Jack with a smile on his face. "What are you doing? Let me go." Dany twisted her waist uncomfortably, and she found something wrong. Her face instantly turned red. "Don't make trouble. It's dawn. Grey Worm and the others are waiting for my order." "It's okay. I have arranged things for them. They won't come now, and my people are guarding the door." "Don't panic. Lift your legs up." Dany was helpless, knowing that if she didn't do it, Jack would not give up. On the other side, Grey Worm and others gathered all the great lords, slave owners, and a large number of Meereenese and new free people under the Great Pyramid. In the original book, a large part of the Great Lords hid in their own pyramids to avoid the looting of the 80,000 new free people who followed Dany to the north. But now, under Jack's special instructions, the pyramids of these great masters were directly broken through by the desperate slaves, and then the Unsullied directly took over the entrances to these castle-like pyramids. After waiting for a while, Jack walked out of the Great Pyramid. Grey Worm stepped forward and asked in a low voice, "Where did your majesty go? Why didn't he come down?" "Dany's a little tired. She can't hold on and rest first." "Don't worry, my people are watching. If you are worried, you can also arrange someone to guard." Grey Worm glanced at Jack. "Of course I believe you. You are the father of dragons, but there may be enemies that have not been cleared in the Great Pyramid. I will take people to search again." "Well, be sure to search carefully." Jack nodded. After Grey Worm led people into the Great Pyramid, Jack walked in front of everyone. "My name is Jack Poseidon. Many nobles may know me because I have another name, the Father of Dragons. I have good news to tell you. From today, Meereen will become the free city-state of Meereen. There are no slaves, no oppression, only the laws in the Dragon King Code. Everyone in the free city-state of Meereen can live freely, eat white bread and drink milk freely." As soon as the voice fell, there was an overwhelming cheer from below, but the cheers were all from the new free people. The Meereenese and nobles were not happy at all. the lowly slaves turned into noble free people. This gap was unacceptable to any marries and nobles, especially the great lords. Each of them looked at Jack with resentment. They thought that this idiot was on their side, but it turned out that he was Daenerys' man from beginning to end. Damn it. When they thought of the gifts they gave to Jack, they blushed and broke their defense, as if they had seen Jack's disgusting expression mocking them. Stinky bitch, a great lord cursed angrily. You accepted our gifts, but you helped the mother of dragons to deal with us. This great lord's words resonated with Jack, and 6 great lords followed him to curse Jack. Jack saw it clearly. Jack smiled contemptuously. You did send gifts, but didn't I show you the dragon? Trading is trading. Don't mix it with human relationships. Okay? Everyone. Then Jack ordered the Unsullied around him. Take those teams of officers from the Free Folk Guards and supervise them to lead people to rob the pyramids of these great lords. Kill all the men, regardless of age, and leave the women. I can use them. The faces of the officers who were named changed drastically, and about 10 nobles in the noble crowd also looked ugly. Jack had already found out clearly that their families were not powerful in Meereen and their foundation was still shallow. At the same time, their family was a single-line inheritance, and their sons all held some official positions in the Meereen standing army. Letting their sons confiscate the family property would make them, who were already looked down upon, completely hostile to the Meereen nobles. After all, regardless of whether they were willing or not, it was their sons who killed the person. As for the fact that their good sons would rather die than surrender, it was ridiculous and impossible. Their greed for pleasure and fear of death were one of their strengths. After arranging the house raid, all the new freedmen looked at Jack with burning eyes, expecting him to continue punishing the slave owners. The eyes of the Meereenese and slave-owning nobles were no longer filled with resentment, but with fear. Of course, they still resented Jack, but they did not dare to show it. Jack didn't care. Meereen's population ratio is abnormal and normal for a slave society. The entire city of Meereen has a population of 800,000, of which 600,000 are slaves. So he didn't really care whether the people of Meereen resented him. These 600,000 slaves were the labor force he valued. What's more, he will also try his best to collect the wealth of these nobles to support Atlantis, so it is impossible for him to coexist peacefully with this group of nobles, no matter what. After Dany takes Meereen, the nobles of Meereen are divided into 3 factions. One is the conservative faction, and most of the Meereen nobles belong to this faction. When the Dragon Mother conquered Meereen, they all hid in their pyramids and plotted their secrets. They tend to drive away the Dragon Mother. The second is the centrist, including the nobleman who later married Long Ma, the nobleman in charge, and the nobleman who is a religious leader. The third is the radical faction, nicknamed Mr. Roundhead, because people in this faction firmly support Long Ma's reforms. In order to show their determination to get rid of the old and welcome the new, they all shaved off their guise-style hair, leaving only a bald head, so they were called the Roundhead Party. Their leader, Noble Dean, is known as Lord Roundhead. In addition, this faction also formed an armed force, the Beastface Army, after the Sons of the Harpy began their assassination activities. The Beastface Army began to replace the Unsullied in street patrols, and also served as an intelligence agency similar to the CIA. These 3 factions are all the same in Jack's eyes, and they are all nourishment for Atlantis. Jack took the first step in searching for wealth, because on the way here, Her Majesty the Queen was heartbroken when she saw 63 children who were crucified along the way. This is simply a cruel and unreasonable approach. So the Queen decided to crucify 63 nobles, so that they could also experience being exposed to the scorching sun and being pecked by crows. Jack's eyes cruelly glanced around the group of nobles. All the nobles looked away, not daring to look directly into Jack's eyes. Ignoring the cheers of the new freedmen, Jack continued, "But the Mother of Dragons is also kind. She is unwilling to do that, otherwise what is the difference between her and those cruel people?" Therefore, the Mother of Dragons decided that in the next day, she would send people to the new free people, and based on the opinions of the new free people, she would select the 63 most cruel slave-owning nobles, confiscate 70% of their wealth, and use it to let's buy food, so that everyone can have enough to eat. Jack originally wanted to confiscate all their wealth, but he was afraid that these people would jump to the wall in a hurry, so he kept 30% to boil the frog in warm water. Of course, the Mother of Dragons is not a dictator. We will also secretly send people to the homes of former free people to collect information. You can't choose not to do so, otherwise you may be targeted in the future. Jack looked at the middle-class people in Meereen with a smile on his face. Don't worry, the nobles will also receive similar secret visits. They will be kept strictly confidential. Just say it boldly. All the free people and nobles in Meereen did not expect that Jack's thoughts were so vicious. Once he was caught in an unannounced visit, he would either die or reveal a name. But once this name is spoken, it means that this person has been offended, even if it is forced. Otherwise, why didn't you say it to others? But to me. In addition, from now on, any gathering of more than 10 people will be regarded as a gathering to cause trouble, and those who want to eat military sticks, well, disperse. Jack dismissed everyone, but only 11 nobles were left after naming them. The other nobles glanced at these 11 nobles several times with gloomy expressions before leaving. The 11 families who were named and left behind showed bitterness and unwillingness. They knew that they, who were already disliked, had been labeled as traitors. Everyone, don't be so gloomy. Come with me. Your chance to become rich is here. Jack took them to the hall of the Great Pyramid, where a huge round table was placed. In front of the round table is an extended staircase with a throne placed on it. However, the throne looks very rough and is obviously used for emergencies. Please take a seat, everyone. Jack came to the front of the round table, closest to the throne, and sat down. Everyone looked at each other, and then a middle-aged man who looked about 40 years old had a straight face and sat directly on Jack's right side. When Jack saw this, he smiled inwardly and saw the man's performance in his eyes, but Mantuo did not expect that Jack would see his determination. Then everyone realized that this seat seemed not simple and took their seats one after another. Jack crossed his hands on the table and smiled. Now that everyone is seated, it means that you are willing to stand in line, right? Everyone was silent. What else could they do if they didn't stand in line? Even if the Mother of Dragons took people away and Meereen restored the old order, they would be ostracized by the nobles and the family would decline. Since not speaking means acquiescence. Please, everyone, don't be so frustrated. Those arrogant old nobles will never accept you at all, and you will never be able to squeeze into their circle. In this case, why not redistribute the interests? Form a circle, exclude them, the old aristocrats, and become the core of power. Jack's words startled everyone. They had never thought about this problem. Because of their lack of family background, they tried their best to curry favor with the old nobles just to get their recognition. Seeing the light flashing in everyone's eyes, Jack knew that they were moved. After all, no one wanted to be a licker. And Jack understood that no matter where, the interests of the old and new forces would never be distributed fairly. Otherwise, Europe would not have accidentally fired guns in the past life, and 2 horrific world wars would have occurred in succession. Everyone, I am the father of dragons, the queen's hand of the mother of dragons, and the commander of the navy. I have the right to make decisions on many things. For example, I have carefully observed the layout of Meereen and decided to divide Meereen into 13 special zones for management. As for the management, in order to stabilize the situation in Meereen, I decided to select the local nobles of Meereen for governance. Jack knocked on the round table in front of him, and the meaning was self-evident. As expected, Jack's words made them brighten up, and they also understood what Jack meant. The reorganization of the power center will be carried out around this round table. Then Jack clapped his hands, and Miss Andy appeared with a stack of papers and handed one to each noble. It was the planning map of the 13 districts of Meereen, including the population distribution and prosperity of each district, which was clearly written on it.
Everyone, this is the planning map. You can go back first. Someone will notify you to see me alone in the next period of time. I will determine which district you will manage based on your talents, wealth. After tomorrow, you will be the power core of Meereen.
After everyone left, Jack returned to his rented courtyard. After all, he had just ruled Meereen and was collecting bribes in the Great Pyramid. This was not a good influence. After returning to his rented mansion, Vittoria saw Jack coming back and immediately asked, "How are you? Are you not injured? You didn't send anyone back to pass on a message. I was worried to death." Jack smiled and touched her little head, comforting her. "Don't worry, who am I? Only I hurt others. How can anyone hurt me?" After comforting Vittoria, Jack sent someone to contact the 11 nobles. He had been eyeing these nobles for a long time, and his family addresses were also clear. Time passed, and it was already evening in a blink of an eye. Jack summoned the last noble, Mando grew. Mando came to visit, not only bringing 50,000 gold, but also countless gems and gold ornaments, with a total value of at least 20,000. This money is definitely a huge loss for a small noble like Mando. Jack immediately stood up to greet him. We are all family. Why do you bring so many gifts? Prime Minister, you are joking. It is precisely because we are family that I come to visit with some trivial things. You and Her Majesty the Queen have liberated Slave Bay, and it is naturally very hard. Bringing some gifts to visit is also my little thought. Please accept them. Mentuo's face was full of respect and admiration. Even if the other party was a teenager, he still did not feel awkward at all. Ha ha ha, look at what you said. Then I'd rather obey than be respectful. I'll accept this small gift. Sit down and prepare some wine and food. Vitelli. Okay, I'll go right away. Mantuo smiled on his face, but he was angry in his heart. This small gift took out 90% of his family's wealth, and almost emptied the house. Then I will take the liberty to sit down and thank the Prime Minister for his hospitality. Why call me Prime Minister? Just call me Jack in private. Don't be restrained. That won't work. You are a favorite of the Queen and the Queen's right-hand man. Respecting you is the most basic thing. You. Okay, then I won't say much. Let's drink first, and the dishes will be served later. The two of them talked happily, like old friends for many years. Mando kept silent about the allocation of the 13 special districts, while revealing information about Mirian to Jack. After the dishes were served, the two drank even more happily, until the moon completely illuminated the earth at night. Jack took the initiative to say, Mantuo, you have also seen the plan of the 13th district. I wonder which one you like. It's all up to you. I only have one small request. Mando said cautiously. Oh, come on. Jack motioned Mando to speak boldly. Prime Minister, you are young and promising, and my useless son is idle in the army all day. Can you take him with you, let him gain some knowledge, and learn from you? Mando said, with an embarrassed look. Is that so? No problem. I remember your son, Evan Gruo, right?
It's his honor that you know his name, sir.
Jack didn't expect that the old man would let his son follow him. If this fell into the eyes of other nobles, it would definitely be a naked betrayal. No problem. Just let him go to the Great Pyramid to find me tomorrow. Okay, thank you. You've worked hard. Just after sending off the happy Mando, Missandei came to the door. Sir, His Majesty called you and said there is something important to discuss. I'll go now. Soon Jack came to the top of the Great Pyramid and saw Daenerys, who was refreshed. Obviously she was in good spirits after a good sleep. Jack came and sat down opposite Daenerys. Dany asked with a sharp look in her eyes, I heard that you acted in the name of the Queen's hand. Someone has reported everything that happened today to her. Why, you don't want to? Then I'll leave? No, I didn't say I don't want to. Tomorrow I will officially grant you the position of Queen's hand. In addition, I decided to stay in Mirin to learn the way of governance. Are you willing to assist me? Asepta and Yonkai are in trouble, right? Jack asked first. How did you know? Daenerys was very surprised. No one informed Jack. I guess the slave owners in Yonkai are not dead. After you leave, slavery will definitely be restored, and the ruling council you left in Astapor is even more fragile. Dany pursed her pink lips and said with some shame and anger, Yonkai did restore slavery after I left, and Astapor was also controlled by a butcher named Cleon. At this time, Dany has realized that slavery cannot be eliminated by military strikes alone. That's normal, but it's not what we should be thinking about right now. The first thing we need to solve is the economy. We need to build a new economic system. After the slaves are freed, no merchants will be willing to come to Meereen to do business. Dany didn't know what to do for a moment, so she could only tentatively say, perhaps we can sell salt, copper, Guskeri wine, olives, and olive oil. Jack shook his head. If these things had enough profit, this place wouldn't be called Slave Bay. Copper is worthless, and salt and Guskeri wine don't have much profit. The only thing that has considerable profit is olives and olive oil, and wine is barely okay. Dany frowned. But the olive trees have been burned by the slave owners, and so have the grapevines. We simply can't restart these trades in a short time. That's the problem. Without the slave trade, we can only live on the mountain and rely on the money you robbed from Estepar. How much do you have now? About 86 million gold dragons, enough for us to support for a while and find a solution. If there is no war, we can indeed hold on for a while. But what if there is a war? Are you saying that the slave owners of Yunkai will attack us? The slave owners of Yunkai are just one of the forces. You liberated Meereen and waited for a few months after the news spread. The slaves in other places will definitely be ready to move after knowing it, especially Volantis. These people are allies of Yunkai. At this time, Dany realized that the situation might be more serious than she thought. Do you have a solution? Seeing that Jack didn't speak for a long time, Dany narrowed her eyes slightly and directly used the beauty trap and slipped into Jack's arms. Since you said it, there must be a way. Tell me. However, Jack, who had finished enjoying himself in the morning, was still able to enter the sage state at this time and was unmoved. Seeing that Jack was unmoved, Dany continued to act coquettishly and said, "What do you want?" "Money." "Money? I thought you would ask for something else." Dany blinked. She really thought Jack would propose a new posture or something. After all, Jack had too many flower jobs, which she hated and desired at the same time. "I'm short of money, to be honest. Not only do I have nearly 7,000 unsolid people under my command, but there are also a large number of crew members waiting for me to support them. I'm poor. Children who cry are fed by milk, especially Dany's, who is extremely rich and extremely delicious." "Then how much do you want?" "There are many places to spend money next, and I don't have much to spare. I even gave you my life, so you can't deduct all of it from me." This sentence directly made Jack, who was in the sage state, a little embarrassed. If he had known better, he would not have done that shot in the morning, and now he is a little embarrassed to ask for money. "Then I don't want the money. Give me the high-level slaves in Meereen, and use these high-level slaves to pay for the money." Dany looked calm on the surface, but she was secretly happy in her heart. She knew clearly who her supporters were and who her enemies were. After Meereen loses the slave trade and olive trees, the economy will definitely decline for a period of time. This is inevitable. Therefore, those who can become teachers, clerks, bed slaves, doctors, and priests after selling themselves are not her allies. These people have the conditions to live a prosperous life, so naturally they will not be happy to stay in Meereen and suffer poverty. So it is better to sell them all for money. Now that Jack has taken the initiative, it saves a lot of time. Okay then, let's use these high-level slaves in exchange. Do you want to take these people away? Take it away. I have chosen a small island in the south as a docking point for the fleet. I need the help of some senior slaves who can read and write. Jack revealed a little about his situation. Well, when I come back, I will ask someone to count the high-level slaves. You can take these high-level slaves away at any time. So what can you do to help me get through the early stage? Jack's hands squeezed the soft decompression tool, and then he provided Dany with several suggestions. The first is the issue of governance in Meereen. We need a simple and practical bureaucracy to rule Meereen. So I divided Meereen into 13 special zones, which are managed by zones. If we don't have talents, we will choose them from the local nobles of Meereen. Wait a minute. Those nobles almost hate us. How can they help us willingly? Jack then briefly told Dany his plan, but omitted the details of the $500,000 bribe he had received. After listening to this, Dany had a new understanding of Jack's political methods, but she still asked a little uneasily, "Are the 11 nobles you selected really reliable?" "We don't need to think about whether they are reliable. What we need to do is how to make them reliable. And you can rest assured that once they take office as governor of the Sar, they will be labeled as Queen's Party. They have no choice but to rely on you. And you underestimate the power of power over people's hearts. Human greed is like a rolling stone on a high mountain. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. What about the Imperial Council? If the power is delegated to them, and they collect taxes and manage it, then the Imperial Council will be of little significance." Jack shook hands and said, "The Imperial Council itself is meaningless. I suggest canceling the Imperial Council and establishing a round-table conference." A round table of 14 members then took over the functions of the Royal Council. To put it simply, the official positions of the Imperial Council were set to 2 positions, chief and deputy, and the power of 7 people was distributed to 14 people. There was no change in essence. This not only disperses power, but also attracts the 11 nobles, who are trying to get into the round table. Jack's idea is very simple. Divide the 7 official positions of the Royal Council into left and right. For example, his position as Prime Minister can be divided into Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. As for whether his rights will be challenged by the Deputy Prime Minister, Jack doesn't care. The strength of his own power is the basis for protecting his power. In addition, there is no need to rush to fill the positions of these 14 people. First, choose the 7 people you trust to serve as senior officials. The remaining 7 positions with relatively less power can be completely released and let them see the performance of other people to make them crazy. 1. You are reaping the benefits. Daenerys looked at Jack in surprise, and then they kissed passionately for 2 minutes. Jack's method was so good. This is not Westeros. She can set up a round table without any hindrance. The power of the ministers is divided, which naturally makes it easier for her to control. Coupled with the position of the consul of the 13th Special Zone, she can completely win over a group of nobles loyal to her, directly realizing the creation of a bureaucracy from scratch. Dany wiped the saliva from the corner of her mouth, changed her sitting position, straddled Jack's lap, and asked excitedly, "What about the economy? Do you have any good ideas?" According to Jack's method, the management problems of Marion can basically be solved, but the economic problems have not been solved. The economy is a bit complicated. We definitely won't be able to solve it in a short time. We can only wait for the grapevines and olive trees to grow back and make money by relying on wine and olive oil. Hearing Jack's words, Dany's little face immediately started to praise, but Jack's next words made Dany happy again. Although wine and olive oil are gone, there are other ways to intervene. The first is the arena. The arena will remain open, but we can use the reason of providing security for the Unsullied to ask the owner of the arena to give up 30% of the profits. Then we control the opening betting of the arena. For example, from time to time we will bring out a newcomer with championship potential and let him challenge the old strongman, and we will make money based on the odds. Not all gladiators like to be free and be ordinary people. On the contrary, most gladiators are eager for the cheers of the audience and the bonus after victory. So gladiators are not necessarily slaves, but anyone who voluntarily participates can become gladiators. Jack's first solution was to continue operating the arena. Many gladiators had adapted to the life in the arena. They were eager for blood and fighting, the honor of victory and generous bonuses. Gladiators were not necessarily slaves, but could be anyone. In other words, any free people who were short of money or eager to fight could sign a contract with the arena to become a gladiator. So Jack could set a high winning streak bonus to attract free people to participate in the fight and then make a lot of money by operating behind the scenes. As the Prime Minister and the Queen's right hand, he could arrange this matter personally, and the bribes he could receive from it were definitely not low. As for corruption and bribery, although Jack had never eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. In ancient times, there was King Heshen, a minister of great rank, and now there is Zhao Dehan, who does not spend a penny. These are all Jack's good examples. Secondly, if we overthrow slavery, we must have a new system to provide jobs for the freed slaves. That is, work. Otherwise, they will be idle all day, and there will be unrest in the end. So we can build some official blacksmith shops, tailor shops, and other shops, and then recruit other people as apprentices. Apprentices have no wages, only food and accommodation, and can choose to stay or leave after learning the skills. If you stay to work, you will be given a suitable salary, and there will be benefits at the end of each year, and the salary will be slightly increased in the second year. Then select a part of the young and strong to form a Free People's Corps to go to the Kaiser Pass, where they will build fortifications and train soldiers. We build manors and then hire slaves who have no skills. We only need to provide them with food and very low wages to let them plant olive trees and vines. We also need people to dig canals to treat salt-contaminated land, build roads to the Kaiser Pass, and defensive castles along the way. In addition, I am willing to take in some slaves to relieve the pressure on Mirin. In this way, we also spend money to get through the early stage, but we avoid many problems and make full use of all available resources. Dany in the original play has been spending money to support this group of slaves after liberating them, causing her to keep investing in them without any positive returns. Once Dany has no money, the food in Meereen will become less and less. Without food, any liberator will be driven out. Finally, it's the question of allies. Meereen has allies, so we naturally have to win over allies. The Lázars are a very good choice. They are not only good at growing food, but also good at grazing. Dany suddenly reacted at this time. So you placed a new legion of free people in the pass of Kesser? Yes, come, I'll reward you with a kiss. In the original book, Dany abolished slavery, and Meereen lost the means to conduct economic exchanges with the outside world. And the land in the Slavers' Bay was covered with salt by the Valyrians during the Valyriagus War. Therefore, most of the land in Meereen is uncultivated land, and food is mainly obtained through foreign trade. One is through sea trade, and the other is river trade. There is a river called Skahazaban next to the city of Meereen, which leads all the way inland. At the end of the river is the settlement of the agricultural nation Lázars, which is the place where Khal Drogo was injured and infected and died in the first season. The Lázars will trade food with Meereen. If we want to trade grain with the Laza people on the Laza plain, we must pass through the Kesser Pass. This is the only way, and we must keep it. Only in this way can we stabilize the grain price in Meereen. Jack rewarded Dany with a 1-minute kiss. Regardless of Dany's panting, he continued. We must not only maintain normal trade with the Laza people, but also give up some of our interests to win over the Laza people. Then, how are you going to give up your interests? Dany slowly recovered her breath. If we raise the price of grain by 10%, the Laza people will definitely be willing to sell grain to us, and then send the Unsullied to provide them with protection. As a price, they only need to pay some grain. When it comes to the Unsullied, Dany immediately becomes serious. The Unsullied are the foundation of my rule. If too many Unsullied are sent, the nobles in the city may be ready to move. There is no need to send too many Unsullied. After liberating the slaves, we will not engage in slave trade. An important source of income for the Dothraki is to trade with the 3 cities of Slavers' Bay, with the population captured in the looting. Now that there is no slave trade, the Dothraki will not approach the Slavers' Bay to loot. 2,000 people are enough to show sincerity and then cooperate with a part of the Free People's Army. Dany nodded. If this is the case, it is acceptable. If the food supply can be guaranteed, then these costs are not considered costs. Providing protection for the cowardly sheep people and then obtaining food is a normal transaction. But in the past, most of the sheep people's food could only be sold to slave owners at a low price. Then the centaurs often come to rob them. Sometimes, as soon as they sell their grain, they are sent to the slave owners who buy the grain. Not only does the grain belong to them, but even the people belong to the slave owners. Therefore, the Laza people are most hostile to the centaurs, followed by the slave owners. So Jack's condition is to win over the Laza people, which is considered to be a relatively stable grain base for Meereen. However, Dany, we must pay attention to the training of the Freeman's Corps, otherwise we can't defend the Kessel Pass, and everything will be empty talk. Well, don't worry, I understand the importance of the Kessel Pass. I will let Grey Worm lead some second-level officers to train the Freeman's Corps. How many people do you think are suitable? The population of Meereen plus the surrounding manors, towns and villages is at least 2 million, and we can probably pull out 20,000 Freeman's Corps. In my opinion, we will recruit 18,000 people and divide them into 3 corps, named after your 3 good sons. Okay, let's do it this way. Do you have any other opinions? Dany looked at Jack expectantly. Jack certainly has other ways. He previously followed an upmaster named the Great Alliance of Time Travelers, which explains in detail how to make money by traveling to the ancient world. P-sets, brothers who are interested can go and have a look. Do set, maybe one day you will travel through time, right? Refined salt, glass, soap, paper making, curved plow, advanced water wheel, high purity alcohol, etc. are all explained. Although Jack didn't remember everything, he remembered most of it. The part he didn't remember can be studied by himself. These are monopoly-level technologies with great ability to make money, so naturally we have to consider the development of Atlantis first. However, we can consider looking for distributors in Meereen later, which can also help boost Meereen's economy. Speaking of this, I don't know if Corax delivered the letter. As early as Dany entered the city, Jack knew that the general situation was set. So he immediately wrote a letter and asked Corax to send it to Setchels, to notify Newgate to arrange an empty ship to pick up people immediately. Take the purchased food along the way, and make a fortune in marrying. Jack did not announce the establishment of Atlantis, and the name of the Atlantis caravan was the Giant Wave Merchant, and the caravan did not reveal the identity of Atlantis. So even if Meereen and Essos go to war, as long as Atlantis or the Giant Wave Merchants do not deploy the iconic 13 giant ships, Jack can still purchase food at lower prices in other places. Even relying on the various commodities developed in the future, Atlantis will become a top-rich country that is comparable to the Iron Bank, or even surpasses the Iron Bank. However, the subsequent population transfer must be planned carefully, and the identity must not be exposed. Exposing the identity is a small matter, and not being able to make a fortune in silence is the biggest loss. Jack deliberately sank his face. That's all. I can't do anything else. I have been drained mentally, and the next step is physical. Please, Queen of Meereen, you don't want the regime of Meereen to be unstable, right? Soon the time came to the second day, and Daenerys summoned her men, including Missandei, Grey Worm, Aggo, Jogo, Rakaro, Jorah, Barristan, all came, and of course Jack was indispensable. In addition to them, there were 11 nobles, all of whom stood stiffly below, staring at Grey Worm and others. Although most of the policies were proposed by Jack, he could not say them all, but let Daenerys say them. Jack's current stage goal is very clear, which is to support Dany to sit firmly in the position of queen. Only when Dany's position is firmly established, his power as prime minister will continue to expand. As power continues to expand, he can continue to suck blood, and Atlantis can better survive the early growth stage. Dany sat on the throne. I decided to stay in Meereen, learn the way of governance, and when I have enough ships, I will cross the sea to take back the Iron Throne that belongs to me. Dany first stated her plan. As a leader, she must establish stage goals for her men. Jorah and others chose to follow Dany, so Dany naturally had to give them benefits and power. Then Dany began to reward them. She appointed Jorah as the commander of the Meereen garrison and recruited 2,000 people to be responsible for the security of Meereen. Then Aggo, Jogo, Rakaro, and Barristan were appointed as the Queen's Iron Guard, of which Barristan was the captain and Rakaro was the deputy captain. Missandei was also appointed as the steward of the True Dragon Tower, which is the big pyramid where Dany is. Finally, Dany took out 2 medals. From now on, the Royal Council will be dissolved and replaced by the Round Table Conference. At the same time, the positions will be changed to 14, and the original positions of the Royal Council will all be set as positive and negative. The 2 medals in my hand, the gold one is the Prime Minister, and the silver one is the Deputy Prime Minister. The job of the Deputy Prime Minister is to assist the Prime Minister in handling affairs. Hearing Dany's words, the 11 nobles who were originally a little restrained suddenly became active. A few smart ones have guessed the intention of Daenerys calling them over. Jack Poseidon, I'm here, Your Majesty. I now officially grant you the position of Queen's Hand. Your talent is obvious to all. After that, Dany stood up and walked in front of Jack, and then personally put the badge of the Queen's Hand on Jack. Prime Minister Jack, the position of Deputy Prime Minister is still vacant. Do you have any recommended candidates? Dany asked. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect Jack to have such an important position in Daenerys' heart. You know, everyone guessed that the role of the Round Table Conference, to replace the Royal Conference, is nothing more than to disperse the power of ministers. But now Daenerys actually gave the position of Deputy Prime Minister to Jack for recommendation. Wouldn't the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister wear the same pants? Your Majesty, I do have a candidate, but... Dany smiled and said, Tell me and see, I believe the Prime Minister's choice will not disappoint me. Then I'm relieved. Then Jack looked at the Meereen noble faction. The sudden look made everyone nervous. Could it be that the Deputy Prime Minister will be chosen from among them? Especially Mando, his heartbeat began to speed up. Is it possible? Is it possible? Your Majesty, I think Mando Gru is quite capable, upright, good at thinking, and fully qualified for the position of Deputy Prime Minister. As soon as Jack finished speaking, the other 10 nobles looked at Mando in shock. They knew that Mando had stayed in Jack's house the longest, but they didn't expect to get such a benefit. Okay, in that case, let Mando Gru serve as Deputy Prime Minister. Then Dany came to Mando and put the silver badge on Mando's chest. You are recommended by the Prime Minister. I believe in his vision. Don't let me down. Your Majesty, I will definitely not let you down, Mando said excitedly. I didn't expect that he would transform from a small noble on the edge of power into a big man in the power center of Meereen. Deputy Prime Minister, above 10,000 people, below 2 people. Jack smiled and nodded to Mando. Congratulations, Lord Mando. Please bear with me in the future work. Lord Zhengshang is too polite. Please give me more advice in the future work. After the two of them exchanged pleasantries, Dany announced the formation of a new Free People's Army and the recruitment of workers. The recruitment work was handed over to Grey Worm, and a total of 18,000 people were recruited, divided into the Black Dragon Army, the White Dragon Army, and the Green Dragon Army. Grey Worm, this matter will be handed over to you first. Recruit a total of 20,000 people, and then eliminate 2,000 people through training, leaving 18,000 relatively outstanding people. I understand, Your Majesty, but isn't the monthly salary of half a silver coin too high? Grey Worm suggested. Dee didn't say anything after hearing this, and Jack explained aloud, Not high. If you want them to work hard, you naturally have to pay more money. Half a silver coin is just the basic salary, and it will increase with the years in the future. In fact, even if they don't pay them, as long as they are well fed every day, there will naturally be plenty of people coming. But not all armies can maintain their combat effectiveness like the Unsullied, even without money. Jack referred to the Kryn's military merit system. As long as you kill the enemy, you can get promoted and get rich, and there will be extra military pay. This can greatly improve the training enthusiasm and combat effectiveness of the army. Seeing this, Grey Worm didn't say anything more. After all, Jack had obviously discussed this matter with Her Majesty the Queen. Then there is the matter of working for relief, which requires Jack to take personal responsibility. After all, this is what the Prime Minister does. In addition, regarding the management of Meereen, I have a plan, which is to divide Meereen into 13 special zones for management. Then Dany revealed the locations of the 13 special zones, which were roughly divided into the upper 6 districts and the lower 5 districts. Jack then took out a piece of parchment and began to read out the list of governors of District 13. The 2 most central areas are ruled by Dany and Jack, namely the 1st District and the 2nd District. As expected, the remaining 11 districts were divided among the 11 nobles, with Mantu serving as the administrator of the 3rd District. Then Dany told some messy things, and the first court meeting was over. In the end, Dany did not announce who would hold the positions of Minister of Finance and Minister of Intelligence. She was obviously preparing to take charge personally. Only the position of Sea Lord was given to Jack concurrently. After everyone left, Mantu immediately took his son Ivan to find Jack. Prime Minister Poseidon, wait a moment. Jack stopped, and Mantuo quickly walked up. Prime Minister Poseidon, this is my son, Ivan Grew. I will trouble you from now on. Mando is always thinking about making his son Jack's attendant. This will not only consolidate the relationship with Jack, but also allow his son to become a proton, making Jack feel at ease about him. What's more, Mentu really believes that Ivan can learn something from Jack. Jack looked Ivan Grew up and down. This guy is not as bad as Mando said. On the contrary, Ivan looks like a very smart young man. Hello, Prime Minister. I have heard of your name for a long time. The reputation of the Dragon Father is well known. I am so excited to meet you in person today. Although Ivan was flattering, his excitement was not fake. Before, his father was very sure that Jack was a person who would do things if he received benefits, but he did not believe it. He thought that all dignitaries were selfish and misers. But he did not expect that Jack would directly push his father to the position of Deputy Prime Minister. This made Ivan very excited. After all, as the son of the Prime Minister, his status would definitely rise. And his father also won him the opportunity to become Jack's attendant. He finally had a ticket to become a player in the center of power. Ewan, you look good. Follow me from now on. The first task for you is to notify all administrative officials who have not yet taken office to hold a meeting at the Prime Minister's pyramid. Okay, I'll go now. Ewan left quickly. Then Jack said to Mando, Let's go, Lord Mando. Let's go to the Prime Minister's pyramid first. Lord Mando, what do you think of the current situation? Jack asked as he walked. Manduo knew that Jack was testing him, so he immediately said, We haven't gained a firm foothold yet. There is an assassin in Meereen called the Sons of the Harpy. Although this assassin does not have a strong assassination technique, it is not afraid of life and death. They usually hide among the people or even the former slaves, and the number is unknown. What I am most worried about now is them. They are like poisonous snakes in the shadows. Once we show signs of fatigue, they will stick their heads out and bite us hard. Hearing Mando's words, Jack's trust in Mando increased a lot. Being able to take the initiative to talk about the situation of the Sons of the Harpy means that he has been thinking about the problem on Dany's side. And the Sons of the Harpy did become Mirren's biggest problem. Even when the slave owners returned to attack Estepdor, Dany had no chance to sneak attack the slave owners' coalition. Because as soon as Dany left with the Unsullied, the slave owners in the city would regain control of Meereen. Yes, the Sons of the Harpy are indeed a big threat. You will be an administrator in the future. Is there any way to eliminate the Sons of the Harpy in your jurisdiction? Manto remained calm on the surface, but was very surprised in his heart. Jack seemed to have known about the existence of the Sons of the Harpy for a long time. After getting his mood right, Mantuo said, "The Sons of the Harpy cannot be eradicated for the time being. We can only wait for them to show up, follow the clues, and completely eradicate them." But although Mantua said he would eradicate them, he didn't have much hope in his heart. He knew how difficult the Sons of the Harpy were, but it was not easy to say it now. Jack didn't care about Mando's answer. He didn't expect Mando to make any effective suggestions. The Sons of the Harpy are actually the dead soldiers raised by the nobles of Meereen, and some free people who hate Dany very much. For the Sons of the Harpy, Jack has thought of a simple way to deal with it. Although it may not be possible to completely eradicate the Sons of the Harpy, it must have a suppressive effect. The two walked and talked, and soon arrived at the Prime Minister's pyramid. The Prime Minister's pyramid is a small pyramid next to Dany's big pyramid. At Jack's suggestion, Dany renamed the big pyramid the True Dragon Pyramid, and set this small pyramid as the Prime Minister's Tower. In the future, the Prime Minister's Tower, renamed from the small pyramid, will be Jack's residence and office. As for the Deputy Prime Minister, Jack can only say that he is not qualified yet. In the future, all the regular officials in the Round Table will have a small pyramid as their residence. This can reflect the difference between the Prime Minister and the Deputy, as well as the gap in status and power. Jack led Mando into the Prime Minister's pyramid. The upper floor had not been cleaned up yet. Only the first floor had been cleaned up. The first floor was also where Jack would work in the future. It is worth mentioning that the pyramid was not as dark and damp as Jack had imagined. On the contrary, as the residence of the top dignitaries in Meereen, the pyramid was warm in winter and cool in summer, with good light transmittance and ventilation. Moreover, there was artificial glass in the Game of Thrones world, so the interior of the pyramid would not appear dim. After waiting for a while, the remaining 10 people also arrived one after another. "Please take a seat, everyone. From the moment Her Majesty the Queen appointed you, you are the administrators of your respective special zones. I need to tell you something." Jack thought that some things must be explained, otherwise it would likely cause trouble later. The first is the management problem. I don't want to hear rumors about you oppressing freemen or new freemen in the future. Second, you should have enough literate people to assist you in management. So the collection of taxes is left to you, and then you submit it to His Majesty. I don't mind you embezzling, but don't let me catch you, otherwise the position of administrator will be handed over to someone else. Jack simply gave a warning to prevent this group of people from causing public resentment. Third, you will compile a set of laws for me within 3 days. This code applies to everyone, regardless of nobles or commoners. Do you understand what I mean? Everyone nodded. Jack wanted a code to govern Meereen, and this code must be absolutely fair. This task is very simple. Just modify it according to the previous slave owner code. Finally, you go to your respective administrative districts to count the population, including all nobles and freemen. Be sure to count them clearly. Then form a community with 10 neighboring households. No one, including nobles, is allowed to move or hold gatherings of more than 20 people at will. In the community, if one family commits a crime, the other 9 families will be treated as guilty. Of course, if you take the initiative to expose it, you will not be punished, and you will be rewarded. Also, let your people inform that there are a large number of reactionaries in Meereen, including spies, assassins, sons of harpies, etc. Anyone who reports and verifies the truth will be rewarded with 50 gold dragons, and His Majesty will personally distribute the money. This is Jack's first method to deal with the Sons of the Harpy, the system of collective responsibility. Since the Sons of the Harpy are hiding among everyone, Jack will let everyone monitor the Sons of the Harpy at all times. And there is another benefit to doing this, which is to fully control the labor force of Meereen and keep everyone under the surveillance of the government at all times. At the same time, the benefits of Jack winning over these nobles are also reflected. These nobles will provide enough literate people to help with the work. For example, how many people under Dany can count in the job of counting the population? Although the Unsullied are very powerful, how many of them can be literate? And there is an invisible benefit. That is, this group of nobles will also win over other nobles to become their allies. They will also be afraid that they will be isolated by all the nobles, and will unconsciously win over familiar nobles. These nobles who are won over will become Dany's potential allies. The next morning, the news of Meereen's division into 13 districts spread. What shocked the Meereenese was that the governors of the 13 administrative districts were all local nobles. This move made many small nobles who had good relations with these 13 nobles active. The big nobles were divided into 3 factions. Some nobles still insisted on expelling Daenerys, while a small number of them were watching and did not express their opinions. Finally, several nobles welcomed Daenerys' rule, because their family economy did not rely on the slave trade, but on olive oil and wine. If Dany could really gain a foothold in Meereen, they would squeeze out all the nobles who made their fortunes by selling slaves. They were even considering shaving their heads to show their loyalty, but Dany had not yet shown the strength to absolutely gain a foothold. In the mansion rented by Jack, the little girl swallowed the milk in big mouthfuls. Wiping her mouth, Vitelli complained, "Really, it's been so long, you're going to tire me to death." "I didn't ask you to drink milk," Jack said helplessly. "Hate, hate, hate." Vitelli put on her clothes angrily. Then she went to fetch water for Jack to wash. With Vitelli's service, Jack quickly finished dressing. "I'm talking to you. Why don't you like wearing silk clothes? Linen clothes are so uncomfortable. By the way, have you grown up again?" Vitelli said as a matter of course, "You have to hold it to sleep every night." "For sure." This Jack was a little embarrassed. He had developed the habit of sleeping with the quilt at night. Now that he has the conditions, he naturally has to sleep with something softer than the quilt. Ellie and Yeager are not around, so Vitelli can only take over first. Although it's still a little small, the experience is not bad. In order to ease the embarrassment, Jack said, "Let's go to court first. I guess Her Majesty the Queen is waiting anxiously." Letterel curled her lips. She was very dull, but it didn't mean she was stupid. She just reacted a little slowly. This obvious change of subject could be heard by anyone. But she didn't continue to ask. It would be bad if she really embarrassed Brother Jack. Thinking of this, Letterel happily jumped and followed Jack to the True Dragon Pyramid. Along the way, the two bought breakfast, and it took a long time to reach the Golden Dragon Tower. At this time, everyone in the Pyramid Hall had been waiting for a long time. The 16 sinful nobles counted had been selected today. So Dany was going to discuss their treatment today. Whether to confiscate their property, as Jack said, or to nail them directly. In addition, Dany also wanted to select some literate people from the slaves to serve as the management of Meereen, and stuff them under the nobles from districts 3 to 13 to let them check and balance each other. However, when everyone saw Jack, their eyes twitched immediately. Jack was seen swallowing a mutton pie in big mouthfuls. Speaking of the staple food of Meereen, it must be mutton and wheat. In Meereen, the price of mutton and pork is almost the same. You know, pork is something only poor people eat. Mutton is cheap because there are many herdsmen who graze it, and many people are not used to the smell of mutton. The nobles eat beef and the like. Pork is cheap because it has a strong fishy smell. If piglets are not castrated during their youth, they will have a strong fishy smell when they grow up. Many people would rather eat pig offal than pork. I didn't expect that the Prime Minister would be so happy, even if he ate mutton. He is so simple. If those vicious slave owners had 100 times more of you, the lives of slaves would not be so miserable. Needless to say, this flattery was definitely made by Mantuo. Only Mantuo was so thick-skinned that he would firmly say that he was a member of Jack's party. Daenerys glanced at Mando without leaving a trace, and then said, "Then let's wait until the Prime Minister finishes his meal before the court meeting." At this moment, Jack's power was fully revealed, and it even made people wonder who was the ruler of Meereen. But Jack didn't play big cards. Dany gave him face, and he had to give Dany face. Face is mutual. After swallowing the mutton pie in 2 or 3 bites, Jack said, apologetically, Sorry, I slept too late last night. Got up in a hurry this morning, and didn't eat yet. The Prime Minister has been working day and night for marrying. It's really hard. I will hold a banquet another day. Please relax. Jorah and Barristan and other original team members looked at Mando, who was flattering him. Everyone couldn't help but despise him in their hearts. He really didn't care about his face for power. After all, he was a deputy prime minister. He didn't think about how to share power from Jack, but instead flattered him everywhere. Little do they know that such people are the most terrifying. Once Jack shows signs of falling out of favor, such people will definitely take the opportunity to bite back. After hearing what Jack said, Dany's face became a little hot. This guy came to her at midnight yesterday. Dany suppressed her thoughts, and after the blush on her face was suppressed, she spoke. What do you think about the execution method of these 1630 slave owners? Your Majesty, I think Prime Minister Jack's suggestion is very appropriate. It will not offend the slave owners to death, and at the same time it has enough starting force, and it can also collect a large amount of money, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Barristan persuaded Dany to adopt Jack's method. Although Barristan had never managed a country, he had seen pigs run even if he had not eaten pork when he was in the royal meeting before. To put it bluntly, this group of slave owners is no different from the nobles in Westeros. And if the monarch wants to maintain his rule, he cannot rely solely on military force. Political means such as winning their support are also particularly important. If Dany really gets angry and kills everyone, then let alone winning them over, if she does not rebel immediately, even the Unsullied will be powerful. Dany pursed her lips, but the new free people are very vocal. I'm afraid if we don't kill them. Jack raised his eyebrows. Your Majesty, forgive me for being blunt. The new free people call you mother, then they are your children. I can love my children, but I can't spoil them. You can't do whatever they want. They are the people. You are the king. Everything must be based on your will. You can make their lives better. That is their blessing. If it doesn't work, give a portion of the confiscated wealth to these new free people. Dany thought for a moment, and finally felt that what Jack said made sense, although he wanted to nail the slave owners to death and then seize their property. But what Barristan said made sense, and the method Jack gave was also reasonable. There was no reason to act on his own. Okay, then, do as Prime Minister Jack said, and distribute a portion of the confiscated wealth to the new freedmen. In addition, select some of the freedmen to serve as low-level officials in the 13 administrative districts. Does it make sense for you? If you have any different opinions, you can raise them. It doesn't make sense for us. It's all up to the Queen, Mando said directly. Their position as administrators has not been completely established, and they have almost no say now. Later, Dany said some dispensable things. Obviously, she knew nothing about how to be a good queen. But she is learning slowly. The first step is to be good at accepting the opinions of her ministers. This even made Jack feel that he was the kind of powerful minister in the ancient drama, who was so bad that he was pus-filled, and then waited for the male protagonist to appear and put himself in jail. When the court meeting ended, the True Dragon Pyramid announced 163 slave owners with heinous crimes. According to Jack's request, a large number of literate people were sent to read out the crimes of these slave owners in the 13 administrative districts. Then the Unsullied quickly went out to capture these slave owners. After learning that they were on the list, these slave owners all cursed. But these were futile, and they were still taken to the square for trial. Because they didn't know whether they would be executed or their property would be confiscated, as Jack said before, the slave owners began to panic the moment they arrived at the square. Then Mantuo came in front of everyone and began to read out their crimes. In order to show the authenticity, Mantuo also listed the crimes committed by each of them, and the punishment they should receive. According to the True Dragon Code, you all have to be beheaded, but Her Majesty the Queen is kind-hearted, so you will be given a chance to live, and only confiscate 70% of your property as a punishment. Then Mantuo asked loudly if there were still people who were dissatisfied, and they could boldly put forward their own ideas. However, everyone was silent, and obviously had tacitly agreed to this method of handling. Jack looked at this scene and shook his head in disappointment. Unfortunately, no one came out to jump around, and didn't even give a chance to search the house. Afterwards, Jack personally led people to inspect the property of these slave owners to prevent them from hiding their property and getting away with it. It was not until the evening that Jack finished his work. A total of 3 million gold dragons were confiscated this time, but unfortunately there were not many real nobles among these slave owners. Most of them were slave traders. This also indirectly reflects the terrifying deterrent power of the great masters in Meereen. Even though Jack promised to vote anonymously, the free people were still worried about being exposed, which would cause the revenge of the great masters. Jack turned over the roster in his hand with some disappointment, which recorded in detail who reported which great master or slave owner or noble. Originally, he planned to use these to threaten some people to surrender, but it did not play the role that Jack imagined. "Oh, it's annoying, there are so many things," complained. Jack was going to find Dany to vent his dissatisfaction. She was busy all day, but she was free. The next morning, Mando went to the Prime Minister's tower. At this time, Jack was sleeping. There was no court meeting today, so he could sleep in a little. Unfortunately, he was woken up by Vitelli in the middle of his lazy sleep, saying that Deputy Prime Minister Mando wanted to see him. Jack had no choice but to get up, put on his clothes, washed up, and then met Mando. "Sir Jack, the 1.8 million gold royals collected this time have all been deposited into the treasury. According to your instructions, 80,000 gold royals will be divided into silver coins and distributed to the free people." "Yes." Jack nodded and then said, "I will pay another 100,000 gold royals myself, and say that it is an extra subsidy from Her Majesty the Queen. Remember, you must clearly state the origin of the money. In addition, the Meereenese also have it. Just say that Her Majesty the Queen has stated that, from now on there will be no distinction between new and old freemen. Only citizens of Meereen." Jack generously took out 100,000 gold dragons to help Daenerys win the hearts of the people. Of course, these 100,000 gold dragons were not paid by Jack himself, but it can also be said that it was Jack's own money. After all, after Jack embezzled the money, it was Jack's own money. 3 million gold dragons were confiscated. Jack took 1 million himself, and the administrators who were responsible for assisting in the inventory of property took 200,000. Among them, Mando himself took as much as 70,000, which shows how wise it was for him to spend all his money to give gifts to Jack. In short, a confiscation operation made the bureaucratic group headed by Jack eat a lot of oil. By the way, as if thinking of something, Mando quickly took out a list. "Lord Jack, this is the information about the Lazar people you want." Jack was stunned when he heard it. "You are so efficient at work." Mentua waved her hands quickly. "It will take 2 days to count the total population. Since you are anxious to get the information of the Laza people, we have counted the number and information of the Laza people first. But don't worry, the work has not been delayed. We have a backup of the information of the Laza people. We can continue to count. There is no delay at all." Jack was very surprised. Mandor was really good at doing things. Being a deputy prime minister was not a waste of talent. In the original novel, Dany did not employ the local nobles of Meereen at the beginning, but let Daario be responsible for collecting taxes. Because only Daario could read and write, and Daario would only embezzle half of the tax revenue, which was the least embezzled among all people. However, the plot has changed a lot now, and Daario has not been reused by Daenerys. Even in Daenerys' eyes, he is just the leader of a small mercenary group, and he surrendered. Taking the information from Mandor, Jack roughly flipped through it and found that the number of Laza people was so large. A full 200,000 Ahaza people are estimated to account for 1/5 of the total population and 1/3 of the slave population. Jack could only sigh that they are worthy of being sheep people. It can be seen how much the centaurs love the sheep people. Not only the centaurs but also many slave traders will go to plunder the sheep villages. Ewan, sort out the people over 18 and under 30 and hand them over to me. After Jack handed the documents in his hand to Ewan, he continued to discuss the canal drainage with Mando. Because the financial power of Meereen is controlled by Dany, they need to estimate the expected cost first, and then submit it to Dany to apply for funds. Now the population of Meereen is about 850,000, and slaves are coming from other places, one after another, and the population is still increasing. Among them, free people and nobles account for 250,000, and the original slaves account for 600,000. Of these 600,000 people, Jack plans to take 100,000 people, and there are 500,000. Therefore, the survival of these 500,000 people has become a huge problem, but not all of the 500,000 people are idle. Some people also choose to work at the docks or other places. Now they are not slaves, and they are paid for working. In the end, Jack decided to recruit 200,000 people to dig the canal. As the saying goes, salt comes with water and goes with water. After the canal is dug, it won't take long for the land around Meereen to slowly recover. What about this treatment? Mantuo asked. After all, they are no longer slaves. They can't be driven to work by whips like before, right? 3 meals of wild vegetable porridge a day, and a few pigs are killed for lunch to ensure that the wild vegetable porridge has a meaty taste. In addition, 5 copper coins are paid. The money is not much. 5 copper coins are only enough to eat a pork sausage, but the most important thing is that 3 meals a day are full, which is the most attractive part. Mantuo looked embarrassed. This might not be easy to apply for. If a laborer wants to eat enough, he needs at least 2 kilograms of food a day. 200,000 people need 400,000 kilograms of food a day, which is as much as the consumption of war. And he has to pay a reward of 1 million copper coins every day, so the monthly consumption is simply an astronomical figure. Jack saw Mantuo's embarrassed face and knew what he was worried about. I know you are worried about the high cost, but now we have sent envoys to the Laza Plain to discuss. I believe that a steady supply of food will be delivered soon. In addition, money is not a problem. Gold dragons are only gold dragons when they are spent. If they are not spent in the warehouse, they are no different from stones. Daenerys sent envoys to the Laza Plain to negotiate. At the same time, at the suggestion of Jack, she also directly asked Dario to lead the Second Sons and 2,000 Unsullied to follow. In fact, these 2,000 Unsullied not only play the role of protecting the Laza people, but also can be used to monitor the Laza people. Once the Laza people want to use food to attack Cameron's neck, the Unsullied can chop off the Laza people's hands. To put it bluntly, it is the garrison in Lamy, which is the same as casting welding mold. While preventing centaurs, it can also control the Laza people. I believe that the servile welding, no, the Laza people will definitely agree with Meereen's approach. In fact, it cannot be said that the Laza people are servile. Living in the Laza Plain, they are good at grazing and farming. They just want to farm and graze well, and have no idea of invading others. They love peace. But the kind-hearted characteristics of the race make them nicknamed Hisaraki, which means sheep people, by the Dothraki. And most of the Laza people live in the form of villages, and only a very small number of tribes can build a small town. There is not even a city wall, and they live in the slave continent of Essos. They are simply the perfect slave race. Okay, in this case, I will take out a rough memorial and hand it in. I hope Her Majesty will agree. Patting Mando on the shoulder, Jack smiled and said, Don't worry, I will go to Her Majesty tonight, and I will definitely get her to agree. Well, Mando knew that Jack and Daenerys had a bad relationship. After all, Jack is handsome. His age is almost the same as the Queen. He is extremely talented, and he is also the father of dragons. No matter how you look at it, he is a perfect match for Danthe. What's more, Jack has Targaryen blood. According to the Targaryen nature, it is very normal for close relatives to marry. After saying goodbye to Jack, Mando immediately arranged the recruitment of laborers. These things were delegated to him by Jack, and he was very active. But in fact, it was not as he thought. Jack valued him. It's just that Jack is lazy. So he shared a lot of government affairs. At the same time, Jorah also took some Unsullied officers to recruit new soldiers with Grey Worm. All citizens who join the army will receive 1 silver coin a month, with food and accommodation provided. After half a year, the salary will rise to 30 silver coins. As for why the salary will rise so much after half a year, it is mainly because of the threat from other trading cities. In less than half a year, the Anti-Dragon Mother Coalition will be established, and then it will be a siege of almost half of Essos. There will definitely be a war at that time, and there will be deaths in the war. If we don't give more, what will happen if these slave-born recruits run away? Soon, Jorah's side was surrounded by people, noisily asking Jorah if it was true. Even many Menriese were tempted. Although they were higher than slaves, they also had to work to earn money. and as long as they join the army for half a year, they can get a salary of 30 silver coins a month, which is really a lot, and the army also provides food and accommodation. This saves one person's rations. Since Daenerys' reputation is very good in the hearts of these newly liberated slaves, not many people doubt it and sign up to join the army. Seeing the crowd of people signing up enthusiastically, Jorah was not happy. In his opinion, it would take too much time and money to train these people into combat soldiers. Especially, weapons and armor had to be made. If Jack wanted to arm these people, it would be impossible without hundreds of thousands of gold dragons. Jack's idea was very simple, that is, to at least provide these people with leather armor and proper swords, guns, shields, and bows. Then the leather armor needed would be contracted to the blacksmiths and tailors in Meereen, and official blacksmiths and tailors would be established. Finally, the official shops took the lead in establishing the Heavy Industry Council and the Light Industry Council. If you want a large number of official orders, you have to join the council and accept the plans and rules formulated by the council. Grey Worm, please try to maintain order. This time the recruitment was carried out by division, and Dany negotiated with Barristan and Jorah. It was decided to recruit a total of 21,000 people, and then pull these people to the Kaiser Pass for training. The 3,000 eliminated people returned to Meereen and took on the task of patrolling and policing Meereen, thus freeing the Unsullied to do more things. And because Mando revealed the existence of the Sons of the Harpy, Dany also stepped up her defenses. Because the formation advantage of the Unsullied cannot be used in the alleys, these 3,000 people will replace the Unsullied in patrolling the streets and alleys. The Unsullied then maintained good order under the command of Grey Worm, and Jorah began recruiting troops for the 1st District. The 13 districts must complete the recruitment task within 3 days. On the 4th day, they will gather and set off for the Kaiser Pass. Accompanying him were some craftsmen who wanted to build a military fortress at the Kaiser Pass. Time waits for no one. They must speed up and strive to have enough strength to protect themselves before the slave owners' coalition arrives. At this time, Dany in the True Dragon Pyramid was sighing and frowning. Missandei asked worriedly, "Your Majesty, are you feeling unwell? You were obviously having such a crazy time with the Prime Minister last night, so why are you so angry today?" "Oh, the money I finally collected from Astapor was approved for 3 million at once. I don't know how much it will cost in the future." Missandei immediately smiled after hearing this, stepped forward to massage Dandy's shoulders, and comforted her. "It's not like we keep spending so much money. Once the crisis is over, Meereen will be able to operate normally. Besides, this money is the slave owner's savings for hundreds of years, and it is not your own hard-earned money. There is no need to be sad." Dany felt much better after hearing this, and at the same time comforted herself. "Yes," and Jack said, "money is no different from stones if it is not spent. Money is what flows." But then Dany took Missandei into her arms and said, "But 3 million, it's really a lot. No, I want Mando to add some more fines to the code." Missandei felt Dany's little hands moving around, and her face turned red. She was not a lily. But she couldn't refuse Dany. As she played Lily with Dany more and more often, Missandei felt that she had become a little bent. Under Jack's policy, the entire Meereen began to operate in an orderly manner. By digging canals, growing olives, building fortresses, recruiting new soldiers, building state-owned enterprises, etc., it successfully absorbed about 300,000 laborers. Finally, with the addition of some people who were originally skilled slaves and were able to find jobs on their own, Meereen's short-term employment problem was solved. After this period of time is past, you can try to grow food and cash crops in the land around Meereen City. Most of the remaining people are old and young. These people cannot do hard work, so they can only live by receiving relief food from Dany. Jack didn't have any good ideas for this. Meereen's finances were well planned, and it was impossible to allocate another sum of money to build a nursing home. And if Dany doesn't liberate Slavers Bay, they will most likely be driven to death by the slave owners. So they are lucky to be able to receive relief food. A month passed in the blink of an eye. That day, Jack received a letter from an unknown source. Although the letter did not indicate the purpose of the letter, the icon in the upper left corner let Jack know that it was a letter from Atlantis. The letter stated that the caravan was approaching Slavers Bay and would arrive in about 3 days. All ships were empty, and a total of 50 ships had arrived, which was more than expected. But even if the 50 ships are fully loaded, they can transport 10,000 people at a time, and they also have to carry supplies. The number is quite large. They will first take away the 5,000 high-level slaves from Dany, and then take away 5,000 female Raza people. It takes about 3 months to go back and forth, and it takes half a year to transport 20,000 people. This efficiency is really a bit slow. However, you can rent some boats, but renting a boat will expose the Septa's Islands prematurely. After thinking about it again and again, Jack gave up the idea of renting a boat and thought of another way. Jack can hire some fleets, let the Raza people board the ships in Meereen, and then transfer to the ships of the Great Sea Caravan on the high seas, thus saving half the time. But that won't be necessary this time, because the Atlantean fleet has already arrived at Slaver's Bay. Jack immediately got up and went to the Dragon Pyramid to find Daenerys. Since the Prime Minister's tower is right next to the true Dragon Pyramid, Jack quickly reached the top of the pyramid. This is where Dany rests. Because of Jack's special status, the guards and maids did not stop him along the way. After all, Dany had ordered Jack not to stop him if he came to find her in the middle of the night. However, when Jack arrived at the door of Dany's room, he heard some bad sounds beyond the hearing of ordinary people. "This is Missandei?" Jack carefully identified them and confirmed that they were Danjin and Missandei. "Why are these two guys driving Lily?" Ignoring the coquettish voices of Yin Yang Yan inside, Jack opened the door and walked in. "Okay, you two? You don't even lower the bed curtains in broad daylight?" Jack's voice and the sound of the door opening startled the two of them. After seeing that the person coming was Jack, Dany immediately relaxed and did not shy away from it. Missandei's face was red with shame, and the black skin on this black girl's face was no longer black. Missandei is not very old, even a little younger than Dany. Missandei in the original book is not very old either. This year, Missandei should be 16 years old, younger than Daenerys. Missandei tried to get the quilt in a hurry, but found that the quilt had been thrown on the table by Dany, and finally could only hide behind Dany timidly. However, Dany sat on the bed with a big horse and a golden sword. "What are you doing here?" Jack rolled his eyes. "So you mean I can't come if I have nothing to do?" "Of course you can come if you have nothing to do, but you are a guy who doesn't get up early without profit. Tell me, what do you want from me?" "The Atlantis fleet is coming soon. I will take away 5,000 high-level slaves in the next 2 days. When the time comes, it needs to be announced to the outside world. This is a transaction that the slave owner has already discussed with Atlantis. It is a job, not a slave trade." Daenerys narrowed her eyes and showed a malicious smile. "Atlantis is Jack's power. According to Jack, Atlantis is his sea fleet and has set up a base camp on the island. But so far, only a few people know that Jack is the leader of Atlantis." "Why do you hide your identity as the Atlantis Sea King?" Dany asked this question formally for the first time. "Although I was curious before, I never asked it." Jack looked at the sky outside, then said, "Missandei, don't leave. I will tell you in detail." After a period of discussion, Jack finally decided to gather the 10,000 people at the dock at night, and then let the caravan take them away before dawn. To destroy the relationship between Atlantis and Meereen as much as possible, Jack told Dany the truth about this, because he was afraid of affecting Atlantis's business. After all, although the Septon's Islands are large enough and rich in resources, the early development still requires a lot of materials and foreign manpower. The most important thing is that the Unsullied cannot give birth, otherwise Jack would not be in a hurry to transfer a large number of people. After Jack left the True Dragon Pyramid, he began to prepare for the population transfer. The population transferred this time included 5,000 senior slaves, including doctors, teachers, housekeepers, and a large number of various craftsmen. There is nothing to say about the 5,000 ordinary slaves. The ratio of men to women is 1:4, with more women, and they are all around 20 years old, which is a perfect population ratio. These 10,000 people are the real first population of Atlantis. Before they arrived, 70% of the population on the Septil's Islands were rootless Unsullied. The remaining 29% were male crew members, and only a few maids were female. This led to the male crew members scrambling to go out to sea, and on the first night they arrived at their destination, they would definitely visit a brothel. The rich ones could only stare blankly with their money in the Septils. But after arriving at the trading city-state, they only needed to spend dozens of copper coins to find a sister with super skills. Even spending a few silver coins, they could play with a sister of super quality, which was so happy. Time soon came to the third day, and a large fleet docked at the dock of Meereen. Fortunately, Meereen's maritime trade was developed, and there were enough and large docks for the giant wave merchant fleet to dock. After Rutger Boone got off the ship with a group of attendants, a young man immediately came up to greet him. "You are the head of the Atlantis caravan, please follow me. I am the attendant of Lord Jack." Then Ivan took Rutger to the Prime Minister's pyramid, and Rutger looked at the familiar Meereen city, with some bad memories in his eyes. He was originally a ship slave in Meereen. After being bought by Newgate, he discovered some talent for business, and was promoted by Newgate to the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He also knew that opportunities were not easy to come by. He was learning to read and write every day. He couldn't always let the attendants help him read documents. If the attendants were bribed by someone, wouldn't he become a puppet of the attendants? Soon Rutger saw Jack playing the cat-paw-mouse game. The so-called cat-paw-mouse is that Jack blindfolds himself and calls a group of naked prostitutes around him, and he acts as a cat. Ivan's face changed drastically. He looked at Jack, who was shouting, "Where is my beloved concubine?" and then looked at Rutger, who did not change his expression. At this time, Ivan's heart was half cold. No wonder there was a team of guards outside the door. How could he play this kind of game in the Prime Minister's tower, in broad daylight? "Well, I'm really sorry, President Rutger. This is a little hobby of our Prime Minister. Please follow me and have some tea first." Ivan looked embarrassed. Rutger's expression remained unchanged, but he was a little curious that Ivan didn't know his identity. Otherwise, Ivan would never show such an expression of exposing the family's shame, but both of them waited respectfully for Jack to finish the game. In fact, Jack did not tell Ivan about this matter, but only told Ivan that he would meet a distinguished guest next. What Jack didn't expect was that Ivan was too serious about his work and went to the dock to wait early. Rutger was the same person, much earlier than the scheduled time, and he was supposed to arrive at noon. After Ivan settled Rutger, he hurried to the hall. "Go, go, 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 go back quickly." Ivan came up and drove all the prostitutes away. Hearing the voice, Jack took off the blindfold. "Hey, that little sister, don't go first. Wrap your chest." Then Jack came to Ivan seriously and asked what happened. Usually when he played in this spacious hall, Ivan didn't come out to stop him. "Oh, how can you do such a thing in broad daylight? Didn't you say that there would be a distinguished guest today? You kid, you went home and played secretly. Do you think I don't know?" Jack scolded with a stern face. "What? How do you know?" "No, it's not important. You should change your clothes quickly. The distinguished guest you want to receive has arrived and is in the side hall." "Huh?" Rutger came so early. Rutger Boone, when Newgate recommended him as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, he talked about a lot of advantages. One of them was punctuality. Now it seems that he is not punctual at all. After Jack changed into a formal suit, he summoned Rutger in the hall again. After Ivan brought Rutger into the hall, Jack asked Ivan to leave. At this time, only Rutger and Jack were left in the hall. "You must be Rutger, right? I often hear Newgate praise you. Now that I see you, you are indeed a handsome man with bright eyes." "Your Majesty, the Sea King is too kind. I am just a small ship slave. Fortunately, I can have what I have today, because of your appreciation and that of Prime Minister Newgate. You are indeed good. How is Atlantis being built now? I haven't been back for several months. Tell me about it." Rutger stood up immediately after hearing this and reported,
"Your Majesty, the construction has just begun."
"According to your plan, Lord Newgate purchased some master craftsmen in the Free Trade City. However, because there are too few manpower, the limestone you mentioned is also difficult to buy, so the progress has been very slow." Jack frowned. He was going to build all of Neptune City with cement. "Are there no limestones in the ocean basins around the Seychelles?" The main materials of cement are limestone, clay, and sand. As the saying goes, 1 stone, 2 sand, 3 clay. This is the simplest method of making cement. Sand is easy to find, as is clay. But limestone is not easy to find. This is mainly because civilization is not clear about the use of limestone. So many people don't know about it. Your Majesty, there may be the limestone you mentioned on the island, but now our development of the archipelago is too shallow, and many places have not been touched. However, I heard from a merchant that this kind of limestone is found in Westeros. Westeros? Jack raised an eyebrow. He hasn't paid attention to the situation in Westeros for a long time, but according to time estimates, the War of the Five Kings has not yet ended. The current time is different from the original timeline. Under the instigation of Jack, the little butterfly, Daenerys occupied Meereen much earlier. Jack gestured to Rutger Boone to elaborate. Your Majesty, when I was purchasing grain in Volantis, I met a Westeros grain merchant. According to what he said, Westeros is now in a state of war. There used to be only one king, but now there are 5 kings. The limestone you mentioned is abundant in the royal territory, and it is said that this kind of stone is very common in the Riverbend Kingdom. It can be found everywhere on the roadside and in the mountains. Jack's thoughts became more active after hearing this. Forget about the Reach. It was too far to go there. But the king's collar is okay, but it's definitely not close. Isn't there one in Essos? Essos definitely has it, but the seller hasn't been found yet. Rutger said with certainty, because he asked the grain merchant in Westeros, this kind of stone is not rare and can even be found everywhere. But the problem was that Rutger visited several trading cities, but there was no limestone for sale. Then Rutger expressed his doubts, and Jack always felt that something was wrong after hearing this. Logically speaking, there are many in Westeros, so there is no reason why Essos can't find sellers. Even the Seychelles Islands have a small amount of limestone. It's a pity that there is only a little bit, and the cement produced is not enough to build a brick kiln. Rutger suddenly had an idea. Your Majesty, do you think there is a possibility that we can't find a seller of limestone because it is everywhere so no one sells it? Aye. Jack was stunned. I copy it. Jack suddenly reacted. Because no one knows how to make cement. Limestone is almost the same as ordinary stone in everyone's eyes. Naturally, no one specializes in selling stone. What we sell is high-quality stone, not weird-shaped limestone. Jack had always thought that limestone was the main material for making cement. In addition, Jack had never actually made cement. He subconsciously thought that this thing should be sold by someone like other ores. Damn it, drinking and sex got me here. I'll stop drinking from today, Jack said angrily. Considering that there are a lot of mountains around Meereen, there are quite a few limestone crazies there, so people need to pay attention to them. At this time, 50,000 people had gathered at the foot of Kaiser Pass, 20,000 of whom were joining the army, and the remaining 30,000 who were building military fortresses. At that time, 10,000 people will be left to mine limestone. It happens that the mouth of the Stahazaban River is in Meereen, so even land transportation will be saved. And there is no need to buy any of this. Just hire Meereen's labor at a low price to mine it. By the way, Rutger, in your name, we will open some taverns, inns, and hot pot restaurants in Meereen. After speaking, Jack handed him a pamphlet. Rutger picked up the brochure and looked at it. It read Meereen Economic Support Plan. Its content includes a large number of business projects, such as the salt land being managed by Castle Meereen, the construction of new taverns, hotels, hot pot restaurants, barbecue restaurants, etc. There are also bunny girls, waiters, etc. The above is a detailed summary of Jack's recent ideas for making money. For example, hot pot restaurants and barbecue restaurants. New World's rich variety of spices are enough to support the business of hot pot restaurants and barbecue restaurants. Even after the shops in Meereen became popular, they could even bring in spice merchants to do business. If you want to do business, you have to stay in a hotel. When the time comes, the hotel opened by Atlantis will be able to make a huge profit out of this group of businessmen. Not only can it drive Meereen's economy, but it can also control Meereen's economy. Jack is recalling the structure of the loom and has almost perfected the drawing. At that time, the cheap cloth of Atlantis could easily overwhelm the cloth merchants of Essos. Even if they have free slave work, the raw materials must cost money, and the efficiency of the textile machine cannot be compared to that of slaves. The more Rutger saw, the more surprised he became. He would not be an idiot to become the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Your Majesty, if we follow this plan, the entire world, let alone Meereen, will be our harvest target. This is called a technical barrier. If it blocks the necks of other forces, we will be able to eat a lot. But the patents mentioned here are probably not very realistic. Once we make money, there will definitely be imitations. It is impossible for us to give up imitation just because of a patent title and reap the benefits. Patting Rutger on the shoulder, Jack said meaningfully, "This is the time for the fish show." If we open a hot pot restaurant in Mirain, and then say that our hot pot restaurant has applied for a patent, no one can imitate it, and if you want to open a store, you can only join us. What do you think they will do? Rutger said without thinking, we must change the name and continue. So, as long as he dares to open a store, I can seize his store, as Prime Minister, and then directly confiscate and auction the house he renovated to our allies. In this way, not only did we earn money from the auction, but we also had allies join us, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Rutger's eyes lit up. In this way, it was really a profitable business. Okay, Your Majesty, I will go back and read the contents of the hot pot chapter carefully. Then I will leave a few stewards for you, and they will assist you in opening the chain store. It is certainly impossible for Rutger to stay in charge of these things. The entire supply operation of Atlantis depends on him and Newgate. However, among this batch of high-level slaves, there are many butlers. When they come online, they can share the management pressure of Newgate. It can only be said that this group of butlers are lucky and can directly become the management of Atlantis. And other high-level slaves, except for high-level bed slaves, must also be the elite of society. And bed slave Jack also has plans. Atlantis cannot always hide in the dark. Sooner or later it will appear in the public eye. It is also good to arrange these bed slaves on the outermost island of the Septils Islands and build an entertainment city there. Of course, Jack will not force those who do not want to continue to be bed slaves. The most abundant thing in the world of Game of Thrones is prostitutes. At that time, the prostitutes in the entertainment city will be slightly trained and put on some special clothes. They will not be lowly prostitutes, but noble ladies. The price for 1 night will at least double. By the way, how is Koroku? Jack suddenly remembered something. Rutger was stunned when he heard this. He thought that His Majesty had forgotten about Koroku. Your Majesty, Koroku is no longer causing trouble. Instead, because of constant hunting, there are no wild animals around the camp. More than a month ago, Koroku returned to the Seychelles with Jack's letter. As a result, Koroku was nowhere to be seen after a week, which was a journey of several days. He knew that Koroku would probably not come back. Jack did not suspect that Koroku had any accidents. Now Koroku has a wingspan of more than 2 meters. Unless he is killed by a crossbow when flying at low altitude, he will not encounter any fatal danger.